Generally, you said feminism is
here's what actually happened.
The foundation of all knowledge.
I'm really mad that
what difference does it make, right? What
Stop.
the deregulation of the industry is obviously going to cause more of that industry.
To lubricate the trust connection between people until they have enough.
Yet we could still look at biological reality in determining who's a female, even if there are.
Why don't you denounce feminism the same way you're denouncing capitalism? If you don't...
For something to be objective, it needs to be verifiable. And you can't verify...
If I make a claim as a political pundit, it is true that I definitely could be wrong. That you're promoting, right?
Ideologies that make that politics, right? This is my ideology.
So 2015, anyone go back and watch the footage? The first GOP debate.
Cool, Robert. Oh, that? We're going to pray about you, sir.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. I am Sarah, the Raging Tomato, back after a long week and some days away. But I'm super excited to open up back with the Raging Tomato with PhD Tony and Paranoid American here to debate, does the rise of AI require a post-capitalist society? I believe both gentlemen may or may not be restreaming on their ends. If so, please be sure to go over, like, subscribe, share, and send them all of your freaking money. Tony, if you'd like to kick off with your opening statement, please.
Okay, just let me click the from my computer, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Great time to hit that like button.
Yeah, okay. Here we are. Sorry, yep.
Do you have a share screen you want to do?
Yes, I do. So just bring it up. Can you guys see that now?
Yeah, I'm getting it right there. Got it. Good.
All right.
Let me open this way. Okay.
Okay, so the topic of discussion this evening is, does the increasing use of AI require a shift to a post-capitalist or a socialist society? I'm obviously arguing in the affirmative. I believe that it does. I believe actually that we should be moving to a socialist economy regardless. There's a lot of misconceptions about what socialism is. So let's agree on that term before we start. What is socialism? A socialist economic system is one in which capital is publicly or collectively owned or government owned. And many people will make the claim that America is a purely capitalist society, that there are no socialist systems in the American economy, and they are, of course, wrong. Socialism is a tool that we apply to markets that don't function properly if you privatize them. For example, law enforcement. It makes no sense to have law enforcement run where people can call their own police officers, or a judicial system where people can pay their own judges, or a currency system where different people have different, are introducing their own money. So these are systems that don't work. The private industry could do those, but because private industry is profit seeking, they'll just give beneficial outcomes to the people who throw the most money at them. And that's not how law enforcement is supposed to work. It's not how the judicial system is supposed to work. It's not how infrastructure is supposed to work. One of the big ones that's up here is healthcare. Let's look at, and this is a debate in and of itself, but here's a plot that really puts it into perspective. Life expectancy is over here on the left. I don't know if you can see my cursor. I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
And the cost per person per year of your healthcare system is down the bottom. USA is over here. It costs more than $12,000 per person per year. And for that, you would think that you would get a better life expectancy than all of these other countries. But no, you're not. You're actually living about the best part of a decade less, and you're paying twice as much for the benefit. You're paying more than twice as much as somebody in New Zealand who lives a good 5 years longer than you. And these countries, for the vast majority, I mean, certainly Canada, New Zealand, Japan, South Korea, Sweden, Luxembourg, France, all of these countries up here have socialized healthcare system. So it just gives better outcomes, and it does it more cheaply than private enterprise. So what's wrong with capitalist markets? Why do they sometimes not work? I mean, capitalism does work in many instances, but why are there some instances where it doesn't work? And why is it becoming increasingly the case that it no longer works? And the reason is that capitalist markets have become very efficient at making rich people richer while leaving the poor and the middle class exploited. We can see here a plot of family wealth in the United States by trillions of dollars. And you can see this here, this orange bit, this is the top 10%. They're getting richer and richer and richer. They're getting an increasing slice of the pie. 50 to 90%, they're doing a little bit better. But the poor people, the growth rate is certainly not commensurate. The wealth of these groups is not growing at the same rate. The wealthier you are, the quicker you are able to get money. Here's a pie chart, and you can see these three blocks here are the top 10%. This is the top 1%. The top 1% have 30% of the US's wealth. The top 10% have 2/3 of the wealth. The bottom 50% have 2.5% of the wealth. That's not representative, and it's not proportional. So how does that happen? Why does it happen? And it's because of the nature of private investment. Here we've got a private investor. They, by definition, they have disposable wealth. That's how they can make an investment. So they approach a company and they say, look, I'm willing to invest in your company, but you have to pay me a return on my money that is better than market interest. Okay, now we look at the company. In order to pay their investors, they pay their employees less money and make them work harder. They charge their customers more, and where possible, they skimp on what they give their companies, and they reduce the protections for the public. They externalize costs. So they increase their pollution, they increase the degradation of infrastructure. So as a population, we are being paid less, we're being charged more, and we're experiencing greater externalities in order to make rich people richer. I would argue that we need to seriously reconsider whether or not this is how we want our society to work. All right. So I've laid the groundwork of what socialism is and why I think that capitalism is already dysfunctional. How does AI make this worse? So AI and the associated phenomenon of increasing automation will replace human employees across a broad range of industries. The humans that are most prone to being replaced are in administration, low-grade legal services, finance, data entry and processing, software development, and customer relationships. A lot of this stuff can just be replaced. If you've logged onto a company website, they'll get you to talk to a large language model to see if they can resolve what's going on, etc., etc. So these are jobs that we're losing, and that has an economic effect that I don't think is properly appreciated. Here's where we're at the moment. At the moment, we've got 4% of the population that are unemployed. And they are, rather than let them starve, we rightly support them. The government supports them. And in order to do that, they tax they tax corporations, and they tax these other, the people who are employed and who can pay tax. But if the number of unemployed people grows because their jobs have been replaced by AI, and they're no longer employable. I mean, there's only so many Uber drivers we can have. So they're not going to be employable. This puts an additional burden on the social safety net, or we let them starve, which I would argue is unethical. So the tax burden on the rest of the population increases. It now becomes more expensive to employ these other people because they have to pay income tax, and the companies themselves become less profitable because they're becoming they're being taxed. So in order to increase their profitability, the companies employ fewer people because people are expensive to employ, and this creates a feedback loop. And ultimately, you can't sustain the system this way because companies are going to become less and less viable. Private corporations are going to become less and less viable if they're torn between paying wages and making a profit. Ultimately, companies need customers that have disposable income to afford their products. The larger the pool of unemployed people becomes, the greater the strain on the social support network. Companies and individuals must pay higher taxes, and there are fewer people with disposable income to buy the company's products. The companies become less profitable and less able to pay their taxes and pay their wages. This feedback loop is already starting, I would argue. So can the government just print money to fund the social security network? No, it can't. Increasing government spending and the supply of money without changing productivity just makes the money more valueless. Everything will cost more. And it's a recipe for hyperinflation. If we look at, we can look at historical examples from the past. Hungary in 1945-6, prices doubled every 20 hours. In Zimbabwe, 2007 to 28, prices doubled every day. Now, what's happening here is that as the money becomes less valuable because there's more of it, people won't keep it. They spend it. They drop it. And this, here's a Hungarian banknote. This is 10 to the 20 pentos. This is 100 quintillion. This is what happens when you get runaway inflation. So no, the government cannot just print money and get our way out of it. We have to move to a socialized system and remove the profit margin for people who are already wealthy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. And Paranoid, he did go a couple minutes over, and I just wanted to let him finish through his slides, but I will grant that same if you need the extra 2 minutes as well.
Okay, that's great. My name's Paranoid American. I've been on here a couple times. I did an Adrenochrome one. I believe the last episode was a debate about how AI should replace teachers. And I think that this might be a continuation, or at least inspired by that original episode. So it almost sounds like this isn't even about AI. This is just about another wrapper of why socialism should replace capitalism. It's kind of the same thing that you hear over and over again. Capitalism is inherently broken. Socialism should replace it. And this debate existed way before AI and ChatGPT, before automation, before the internet. So really the question here, I feel like I don't have the burden of trying to prove that capitalism is better than socialism. I just have to prove that we don't need socialism or even anything post-capitalism just because AI's here. That's sort of the claim, right? So there's a few reasons why. The original concept of this debate was that we require a post-capitalist system. Well, first of all, it's vague, and the requirement is pretty strong terminology, because post-capitalist isn't really a solution. This is almost bordering on critical theory, where a critique isn't a solution, right? It's if the solution is socialism and state planning and UBI, then this becomes a completely different argument. And again, AI doesn't really have to play into this. And I also believe that this turns into a concept of letting perfect become the enemy of good, where of course we've got a flawed system. You mentioned Social Security, you mentioned the healthcare system. I would make arguments as we get into the weeds here that those are all side effects of trying to impose a socialist system within a larger capitalist system. I also think that capitalism already has all sorts of tools, those exact ones that you just mentioned. So we've got Social Security, we've got Medicare, unions, libraries, public universities, we got antitrust laws, we've got all sorts of regulation that sort of exists within this capitalist hybrid society. So acting like we need a brand new system isn't really accurate, because we already have something that can cater to small variations. Also, I guess this is part of my bias, but the opposite of what we need here is government control and having like a consolidated government state actors that are in charge of this AI. The concentration of power is actually what the biggest problem is, right? So right now, big tech kind of owns all of these different models, but it's still split up between different independent private companies. We've already seen how the government can step inside of that sort of arena and even stop these releases. That actually happened like 2 weeks ago, where the government stopped Anthropic from releasing one of its language models. So they're already interfering with the normal free market capitalist approach of this AI. I want to point out that we only have this AI emergence because of private enterprise and because of capitalism. And we're basically using price as market indicators to let you know which AI models and which type of training is actually going to become more viable in the long run. And I think ultimately, if this all became a debate topic because of let's replace teachers, and if you get rid of teachers, now you have more people that don't have income. And if you have people that don't have income, then they can't provide more money into the state. And that was sort of the premise you posed here. But I would just argue that this just means that there's going to be a shift in what the workforce needs to provide to the rest of the market. We might not need the people answering the phone, but now it's going to be people that know how to manage AI agents. And now all of a sudden the managerial skills are going to have to be enhanced. And it's really going to shift from an economy based on how much information you've got and any kind of specialized skills to now you can offload your intelligence and your skills, leverage AI, and the new workforce is going to be people that have sort of the impetus to actually see projects through, manage things clearly, and put together a whole new workforce. So I'm actually curious to see why AI specifically would be the catalyst for why we need socialism over capitalism all of a sudden.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, as a kind reminder to the audience, we will get through our debate. We will maneuver into closing statements. Then we will read and respond to your kind super chats. And then, of course, we will open up the panel for our Q&A session. Now, little caveat, we are going to shorten our debate in half this evening. So we're only going to go for about an hour. And so keep an eye on the timer for open panel Q&A because it will happen a lot sooner than normal. All right, gentlemen, I leave the floor open to you.
Okay, so I feel like you're trying to have your cake and eat it too. You can't criticize me for saying that there are for saying there are already problems with the capitalist system and then saying all of a sudden we need socialism. You can't whine that I've made the point that we need socialism already and then say AI is some sudden change that means we need socialism. AI is another step in the direction for why we need socialism. But I didn't make the argument that AI is suddenly doing anything. AI is exacerbating structural problems that have already existed. Furthermore, so I'll let you respond to that.
Well, I guess I would argue that the very title of this debate is, does the rise of AI require a post-capitalist society? So in that statement, the rise of AI is serving as the catalyst. Like, here is the reason that we need a post-capitalist society. The debate isn't just, is socialism better than capitalism, or should we move towards post-capitalism? It's, does the rise of AI indicating that being the catalyst to require this post. So I'm just curious, why is it AI?
Because it creates more unemployed people.
I mean, it will offset people's jobs in the short term, but then they find new jobs. Like this analogy has been beaten to death. So people that used to drive horse and buggies, they lost their jobs once cars came out. But having the auto industry, now there's mechanics, there's people that do the assemblies, there's all sorts of different industries.
What jobs are they going to have? Don't just say, what jobs are people going? So we've got somebody whose job is currently that they're a data entry person. What else are they qualified to do, and what can they be trained to do in your AI future?
Well, qualified is a little bit of a loaded term here. So what they're qualified to do is going to based a lot on their own capabilities and what they've trained themselves in over their life, right? So just because you know how to enter data into a spreadsheet doesn't mean you automatically qualify for another job once a computer takes that from you. But if you were in that role,
what can they be trained to do? What else can they be trained to do?
Because if you're outside of AI, if you're in that role as data entry, typically, if you're working upwards, then you're going to become a manager. And at a certain point, you're going to be managing multiple people that are also doing data entry. And then you become a manager of managers.
Is it your assertion that everybody using data entry becomes a manager?
I mean, that would be one of the many paths where if you are no longer the actual data entry, you're now the manager of multiple agentic data entry. So now the amount of throughput goes up, but it's still the same industry.
But no, you're just wrong, sir. Look at the number of managers does not equal the number of entry-level clerks. If every entry-level clerk eventually goes on to become a manager, those two numbers should be equal. They're not.
No, but we're talking in the context of AI, where you can spin up 20 employees now for
to do what
compared to to do more data entry.
Okay, but why is the company that needs the data entry paying you when they can just have computers do it?
So when you say just have computers do it, does this mean that like the CEO that runs the company fires everyone else in the company and just shouts out into the void, computer, do the work for me? No, you still have to have people that are aware of the industry, that can articulate their needs. And honestly,
and how many of those are entry-level data clerks?
Not many. There's not many people.
Okay, so the entry-level data clerks aren't getting jobs in your reconfigured corporation.
If I can to finish that, the reason why a lot of entry-level data clerks wouldn't be qualified is because most people in general aren't very qualified at articulating what they want with specificity. And that's a new form of skill that's going to have all sorts of value to it that didn't used to sort of exist prior to AI. Now, being a good manager, having good communication skills, specifically with computers, that's going to be what gives you upward mobility. It's not going to be.
So let me crystallize your claim. Your claim is that increasing use of automation and increasing use of AI will not result in unemployment.
I didn't say that at all. Of course, it's going to in short term, but it means that the markets are going to have to shift and skill sets are going to have to shift. Because the new market isn't going to be one person doing one job. It's going to be how many agents can you manage? If you can manage 10 or if you can manage 20, then you're worth more than someone that just sits down and does the job of one person.
Your claim, but what if somebody can? What if not everybody can? You can't have an economy where everybody's managing their own agents. That's not the basis for an economy.
Why not?
Because not. Do you need an agent?
Do I need?
Do you need a data entry agent?
The word "need" is doing a lot of confusion here. No, I don't need anyone to do anything. If I've got my Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if I got food, shelter, clothing, no, I don't need data entry.
Okay, then the fact that you can do that, the fact that you want somebody to pay you to manage an agent, That has to be a job, right? In order for you to be employed, you need somebody to be willing to pay you to do that. But you don't need that done. So why would you pay? So you're arguing that everybody is going to get paid, but not everybody actually needs it done.
No,
I don't see. I don't. You're not producing anything here. So,
I think.
And this.
Good. Finish your thought.
You need the economy runs on production and consumption, right? In order. It's not just supply side. Just because everybody can manage agent, that doesn't mean that everybody needs an agent. You can make as many and as good shit sandwiches as you want. You're not going to sell many because people don't want shit sandwiches. And even if you make really good pastrami sandwiches, there's no point having everybody making pastrami sandwiches 24 hours a day because people can't eat that many pastrami sandwiches. You only need people making as many pastrami sandwiches as you want. So this agent management thing that you're talking about, what are these agents doing that is productive that people want done and are willing to pay for?
So this sounds like a weird, confusing loop of logic here. If you need data entry at all, let's again forget AI. Right now in the real world, there are people being paid to do data entry. This was your example, so I'm running with this one example. We can extrapolate it to many other industries, but right now someone is willing to pay money to another human being to do data entry. Well, the new future is that person that I'm hiring, I don't want to pay somebody to just do the job of one data entry. I want to hire that human, and now they can run 10 agents, and now they are putting the output of 10 human beings that were individually doing that, but that requires that one human being.
Yeah, and what? So okay, let me stop you there. You just sacked 9 people. What are those 9 people?
No, absolutely.
Yes, you did.
No,
yes, you did. But the company doesn't need, so the company doesn't need 100 data entry people. If each of those employees is now doing the job of 10 data entry people, the company doesn't need that. You can tell they don't. You can tell they don't need that because they only hired 10 data entry people. So the company only needs 10 data entry people. They're not going to pay the other 9 people. They're going to pay the one person to run the AI to do the job of 9 entry people, and they're done. That's all the work the company needs. The company doesn't need 100 data entry people. If they did need 100 data entry people, they'd have hired 100 data entry people.
Let me stop you because that's ridiculous. That would be the same, that logic would say that if I had a roofing company and my guys were all putting in, every single hammer or every single nail by hand with a hammer, and then all of a sudden I buy them a power, nail gun, and that means that they can do the work of 5 people. That doesn't mean that I fire everybody else on the team. It means now I can do 5 to 10 times as many roofs and make 5 to 10 times as much income because now I've got a much larger business.
That's not true, sir. You just don't understand. You don't understand how economics work.
Hold on. At least let Paranoid finish his thought.
Okay.
What we're talking about is scale. So just because I can scale 10x doesn't mean that I fire 9 people. It means that everyone stays employed, and now I'm doing 10 times the amount of business. It makes absolutely no sense that if I'm able to hire someone that can then do 10 times the work as the person next to them, that doesn't mean everyone else gets fired. It means now my company is just 10x the scale. Well, then
you don't understand how economics works, right? The company has a fixed amount of data processing that it needs. Right
now
let Tony go at least. Let Tony go.
Okay. The company has a fixed amount of data processing that it needs done in order to undertake its business. That isn't changing, right? In order. I'm still, sir. You just don't. You are just making baseless assertions, and you seem to be completely in order to justify. If they could make 10 times the money by having 100 data entry clerks, they'd be doing that already, right? because
right.
there are unemployed people that they could be hiring to fill those data entry clerks. They don't need more data entry done. They're not going to do more data entry. They're only going to do as much data entry as they need. You seem to imagine that somebody is going to pay for spurious data entry. That isn't how economics works.
Well, every time you say right, I take that as an invitation for me to respond. So no, not right on either of those counts. Let's shift it from data entry to software development. If I'm able to take one of my developers and give them agentic AI, and now they can do the output of 10 times as many developers, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden we get to the finish line quicker and we're like, all right, I guess we made the software. The software is done. Everyone go home. No, it means that you make new features, you expand more, you get into more industries, you get into more verticals. So this is about scaling. It's almost like you're arguing that as a company scales, they have to fire people because now they're doing more work and they can't do too much work. Like a data entry, we're only going to do 100 data entries. And once we get enough people that can do that in a day, that's all the work. No, they're going to expand. They're going to hire more clients. They're going to find new ways to keep expanding.
Hire clients. How do you hire a client?
You're going to go out and find more clients. If your business,
but you're paying your clients.
You're gonna find clients. Yeah, you're gonna add.
You're going to find clients. Okay, but you understand that the economy is already working. So all of the clients do have somebody doing the work that they want done.
That's not true.
Right? It isn't.
No, not right.
Yes, it is. Otherwise, the economy wouldn't work.
No, there's people out there that maybe they can't afford to hire 10 people to do data entry, but all of a sudden, if one person can do the work of 10 data entry experts, well, they can afford to pay that one person. So now it's inviting more clients into that market.
But you keep on using. So let's go back to the example that you chose about building a building, and you said that being able to drive nails in would allow you to make more roofs.
Yeah, you can do 5 roofs.
No, you need vastly more infrastructure than that. In order, it's not just a matter of being able to put in. You need more transport in order to transport people.
Yeah.
You need more workers, but you also need people who can afford to buy houses. Right, the number of people who can afford to buy houses isn't vastly increasing. The amount of land, the rate at which you can get the resources in order to buy houses isn't vastly increasing. So just because you've got increased capacity at one point in a complicated production line, that doesn't mean you can just increase the entire production line. That
sure does.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
You're just making assertions here with zero economic. I've sat in on quite a bit of economic theory, and I've read some textbooks here, and you're making very simplistic arguments that seem predicated on the idea that there's zero cost to and zero infrastructure required to support an increase in productivity, and that clients will just fall out of thin air to wanting the extra production that you can that you're capable of. That isn't how the economy works.
This is a very socialist approach to this. I would say that, of course, clients will come out of thin air as soon as competition is introduced and the price point all of a sudden breaks into a different type of consumer. Now,
how cheap do you need to make shit sandwiches in order to make them attractive?
This analogy is not doing you any favors, because again, your contention here is that the rise of AI. Let me bring us back to the actual topic of this debate instead of turning into socialism is the best system. The rise.
I never once said those words, and I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't make a straw man out of my position.
Okay, with your pastrami sandwiches. Okay. Again, if AI and the rise of AI is what requires post-capitalism, I want to know exactly what it is about AI that's different than anything else. The automobile coming out that created more unemployment. And in fact, Henry Ford's the one that decided he was going to limit the work week so that people had more free time to go and spend money to spur the economy so that they would have money to buy the cars and the things that he was producing, right? So here's an example of the capitalist system doing exactly what we see AI doing 100 years ago. So what is your reasoning why it's AI is the catalyst that now has to usher in socialism?
Okay, because so you understand the concept between skilled labor and unskilled labor.
Inform me as if I don't.
Okay, so skilled labor is that which requires a large amount of training and expertise, capital investment in upskilling the individual so that they can undertake the labor, right?
I would push back on the capitalist investment. You don't need a capital investment. You can become a skilled worker without investment in capital. But yes, in general.
Can you attain a PhD without capital?
That's in that one very specific example. No.
Can you obtain it? Can you obtain a degree without an investment in capital?
You're talking about the Rockefeller system? No, that because
I'm talking about the acquisition of tertiary education,
which ironically is a socialist system that you have to go through a nationally accredited system to prove that you went through this state endorsed degree system. No, you're arguing for more socialism and then using that as an example of where this all breaks down. I'm
making the point. I'm making the point that tertiary educations require capital.
No, can you become a systems architect or a software engineer without a PhD or without a degree? Absolutely.
Only if you receive the appropriate amount of training, which is to say that somebody has taken a significant amount of labor to train you.
That's not incorrect. You can be self-taught on the internet now.
You can be self-taught on the internet now. Why would another company trust you?
I don't.
Anybody can. If somebody turns up at your company tomorrow and says, "Look, I can run all of your computer systems. Trust me, I'm self-taught. And I'm fine. I'll run all of your systems. Give me all of your files." Why would you trust that person knows what the hell they're talking about?
Well, first of all, it's definitely not a degree. As someone that's been in this industry for decades and done the hiring, someone just having a degree that says that they know software engineering means absolutely nothing.
That's a dishonest response to my. That's a dishonest response to my question.
Okay, can I finish my response?
I asked a question and you claimed that you were going to answer it. Answer the question. Answer the question that I asked. Don't go on some unrelated tangent.
Okay.
Why would you trust somebody who just turns up and says, "Trust me, I know what I'm doing. I'm self-taught," without any verification of their claims?
Why would you trust someone that shows up and just says, "Here's a degree"?
It's a yes or no question, sir. Answer the question. You can tell you're being dishonest by your unwillingness to give a yes or no question.
So
you could always do an answer with a condition. You could always add that on.
Well, let me just stay here that you're hurting your own argument here because you just asked me why would someone trust you, and then you said it was a yes or no answer. Starting a question with why usually doesn't result in a yes or no. That would be nonsensical. So why would somebody trust you? I'm going to answer your question with another question. Why would I trust you just because you show up and have a degree? Because again,
why would I answer your question given that you didn't answer mine?
You two are going to be...
Let me answer your question, though, if you'll accept it, and just maybe let me get the entire answer out before you start splurging. So if I go into a job interview and
what is splurging?
If I go into a job interview and it's for software engineering, they're not going to just say, "Oh, you've got a degree from whatever college, the job's yours." What they're going to do is they're going to give you a code test, and then they're going to give you 3 or 4 different rounds. They might give you an actual project to do live, and they can see how you design the system, how you overcome. They might usually what happens, they'll throw a wrench in. You'll be done with the project, and they'll say, "Oh, we've got a quick requirement change." All of this happens. and you can prove your merit. What I would be arguing is the difference between meritocracy, which works very well in capitalism, versus the Prussian Rockefeller system that you seem to be advocating for, sir.
Was that some sort of question?
Yeah, meritocracy. Why would you trust anyone?
No, that wasn't a question. You didn't ask a question. You just made a statement and accused me of splurging, which is actually the spending lots of money. It's got nothing to do with spurging, which is the word that you were groping for. But you are unrelated. Unskilled laborers, and there are people who lack the skills that you pointed out are necessary in an AI setting. You ask the question, why does AI accelerate the move towards socialism? Because there are people who are incapable of undertaking the tasks that will be economically valuable in an AI driven economy. You just deny that that's the case because you don't understand how the economy works. The economy works based on goods and services. It doesn't work on the basis of data. You can't just say, look, I've now expanded my capacity tenfold. I'm going to find it easier to find 10 times as many customers because your competitors have also had their capacity expanded tenfold. And there aren't, and their competitors have had their capacity expanded tenfold. And there just aren't that many customers. You can't, and your claim about competition. Your claim about competition here. Where are Google's competitors? Where are PayPal's competitors? The history is that yes, these are AI is a competitive market now, and then all of the AI providers except for one are going to fall over, and those investors are going to take a bath, and then we're going to be stuck with one AI.
So now we've entered the prophecy section of your debate.
Is Google in the future? Is PayPal in the future? Or are these things that have actually happened and that have shown how we've seen how these markets behave in the past? There are lots of competitors, and then they all fall over, and there's one survivor. Is that not true? Is Google not essentially the only survivor?
That's not true. No, Google's not the only company left in the planet. Absolutely not.
The only survivor in the web browser market.
No, they don't even do web browsing anymore. Their main revenue now is basically ads. It's not about web. And
yes. And do they have direct competitors, or are they operating a monopoly?
To respond now. So AI, ironically enough, AI is replacing the need for web browsers. More people are now just going to AI than they're looking at Google search results.
Right. Is that viable in the long term? Is that viable in the long term? So let's suppose that AI does take. Let's suppose that AI does take over that. So those web pages no longer get it. Those web pages that actually have the information, they no longer get any web traffic because nobody's going to them. Everybody's just going to the AI. So the advertising that was attached to those pages, that falls over. So there's nobody paying for that web page anymore. There's nobody paying for the power that the computers take. There's nobody paying to update the software on it because nobody's visiting the website anymore. You have just made the case for how AI breaks existing corporate, existing capitalist incentives because AI stops advertising from being an effective way of funding things.
You're speaking of AI as if it's just this one ubiquitous company or this one technology owned by one company. There are many different solutions for AI, different countries, different companies. So when you're saying that just because AI disrupts the way that ad spend work on the internet, that does not dismantle capitalism as a whole. Again, the burden that you've placed on yourself to argue for socialism because of AI, that's what we're here to debate. Again, it's not going to be about whether or not capitalism has flaws or whether or not AI is going to cause unemployment. It's that
when you
why
finish
does
declaring yourself
socialism-
a victim by default, I'll take issue with what you're saying. If I can. So you can't explain how capitalism can keep those web pages up. If AI is cutting off the traffic before it gets to those pages, so you can't answer that. You've got no mechanism by which capitalism can maintain the content on those pages. So you're just going, well, that's just one example. You haven't made the case more generally. But we can go through other examples, and the other examples we were talking about. Not every company can just increase its productivity tenfold.
Well,
not every IT company can just increase its productivity tenfold, because there aren't 10 times as many customers. If every IT company on the world has the same tools and can increase their capacity by the same amount, they're still competing with one another, and they can't operate at full capacity because there just aren't that many clients.
This is the same flawed logic that would cause someone to say anything that could be invented.
How about you explain how the logic is flawed rather than just say it?
So this is the same rhetoric and false logic that would say everything that's been invented has been invented, because what you're saying is that every company that has customers, they've already got all the customers they're ever going to get. And even if they were able to double their productivity, there's not enough customers out in the world to satisfy. So we might as well give up on capitalism and welcome socialism with open arms. You seem to be spending
to be brutally honest, sir, you just sound like you've never opened an economics textbook.
You're trying to put the burden of proving why capitalism works. That's not my debate. What your debate is, you have to prove to us why AI specifically is going to be the thing that has to usher in post-capitalism.
Is proof a part of science, sir?
When you're saying explain
to me, is proof a part of science?
Just because someone's website gets less ad revenue because AI
is proof a part of science?
Repeat again, because you were talking while I was talking.
He said is proof a part of science?
Sure, yeah, proof is a part of science.
No, it isn't. You don't understand what you're talking about. Proof only occurs in mathematics and logic. That is where proof is. In science, we talk about evidence. So I don't have to prove logically or formally. I have to provide evidence that is persuasive to my case. And I argue that I have done that. And you can say, and this prove stuff is the litany of flat earthers. Proves that the earth is round.
Oh boy.
Prove that isn't a fake photo. Prove this or that. All I have to do, my burden in this debate is to present evidence and arguments that are persuasive, or that I consider persuasive to the audience. I am not required to prove to you or to your satisfaction whatever your belief system is.
So part of my belief system is it's a hallmark of someone with a horrible position in a debate to start to dwindle into semantics, which you've done a few times. Okay, I use the word prove instead of evidence. If that
do you want to find another criteria by which you're winning? Do you want to announce yourself the winner? Would you like to go away and give yourself a gold star for how good a debater you are? We'll wait while you cut it up, and you can pin it to your chest. I'll even sign it for you. I'll give you 10 debate points. But in a debate, the terms that are used are actually meaningful, and your fuzziness of terminology, your willingness to actually be imprecise in how you're formulating things, and you're very fuzzy. Every time we try and get into the meat and potatoes of how the economy actually works, at its bottom, the economy works because people want food. People need food. People are willing to give up stuff in order to get food. Increasing the amount of data entry doesn't increase the amount of food. It doesn't, and there's only so much food, there's only so much raw materials that's being produced, there's only so much hard material goods that are at the foundation of the economy, and these are what people actually need to live. AI isn't going to increase that, but it is going to make it harder to get a job because you're not necessary anymore. I can do all of the data entry I need with a fraction of the people. And your claim, well, people will just do more data entry. They'll need more data entry. Why? Why do they need more data entry?
So that's not my claim, and in fact, I think that you've got this weird boomer doom and gloom to you, where you're kind of like, it's called black pilled, where AI is gonna, send everyone out of a job and it's gonna ruin everything, and this is why we need socialism and vote Obama back in and get Angela Merkel and run the country.
Do you want to put in any more poisoning the well? Are there any other appeals to poisoning the well, or do you actually want to touch on the economic realities about how the economy actually fucking works, rather than going off and dog whistling to conservatives and conspiracy theorists?
Okay, so I do. I've got one other toxic thing. I'm just gonna sort of ignore all of the incoherent babbling that you've thrown at me, and let me just make some strong points. And if you want to speak to these, you can, or you can talk about bologna sandwiches or whatever. AI is going to require massive experimentation. It is an incredibly experimental field. Capitalism is hands down better at experimentation than socialism. The AI boom is
what's your demonstration of that?
The AI boom is already being built.
What is your demonstration of that? What is your data, or is that just an assertion you've made?
AI also is going to require price
So that's
signals.
just an assertion you've made. You're just making assertions here. So you're not going to produce data. You're not going to present an argument. You're just going to make a series of unfounded assertions and say that you won the debate.
So in addition to AI needing price signals, which is something that works much better in a capitalist society.
Why does it need price signals?
Capitalism also is going to end up rewarding.
Why does it need price signals? You are just making assertion after assertion after assertion, and you can't substantiate any of them.
Is there? Let's let Paranoid get through his sentence, and then maybe it will have a bow tie at the end of it.
Again, some of your argument has been you don't understand economics, but you're not actually explaining anything or making coherent arguments. You're just saying what I don't know. So let me tell you what I do know. Capitalism rewards usefulness. That's the meritocracy part, which you haven't been able to wrap your head around, which is usually
perhaps do not. If you want me to remain silent, don't talk about what's inside my head. You don't know what's inside my head, and it's inflammatory to do it.
I'm sorry if that triggered you again. Capitalism rewards meritocracy, not just being impressive. So that's, and it's not just throughput. It actually has to have some utilitarian. And when I was calling you the doomer boomer, and then you distracted the conversation, but this is because I don't look at AI as, oh my God, it's replacing everyone. We're all going to be out of jobs. I see it as you don't need a degree. You don't need a PhD. Now you can offload that being the specialist, the LLM, the AI, it can be the specialist. And now it just needs somebody to harness it, to tell it, hey, specialists, do these tasks in this order by these metrics using this criteria. And now all of a sudden, you don't necessarily, just the same way that an Uber driver doesn't need to know how to cook the meal. They just need to know how to drive from point A to point B and deliver the thing. That doesn't require any sort of special skills. That's a great analogy for what the new workforce is going to be. It's going to be a bunch of people that can deliver product from point A to point B. But if you can,
how many Uber drivers do we need?
If you can think in the more abstract here, it's not literally.
No, it's supply and demand. So we only need so many Uber drivers. We only need so many data analysts. We only need so many web page designers. We don't need vastly more than we have. And the reason I can tell that is because there are unemployed people in each of these industries. Okay. And you keep on saying, like, you know, that there will be demand for these services that is magically going to come from nowhere. No, we have our economy more or less functions, which means that we are producing what we need, right? If we increase production and start producing more than we need, that's where communism and other authoritarian systems run headfirst into a wall, is because they're not basing production on what is necessary. They're basing production on some arbitrary performance metric. Now, and you have this misunderstanding about socialism, that it is somehow incompatible with meritocracy. That isn't true. That it's somehow incompatible. All it means is collective ownership, not government ownership, collective ownership of capital. So a company where the workers own the company, the employees own the company, that is a socialist economic system. That is not the idea that the government has to own everything. That is a form of socialism. It's not a necessary form of socialism. So you've been attacking straw mans for the entire debate.
You keep asking me for data and keep saying, oh, those are assertions. Where's your data? Okay, where's your data? How many data entry people do we have now? How many do we need? And how many more can we handle in the market? Because since apparently you've been honing in on that.
All right.
So you apparently know what the market cap is on all data entry across all industries. So I'm interested to hear exactly what that number is, since it seems to be a hinge of your entire argument.
Okay. It's not the hinge of my entire argument. You don't seem to be able to follow abstract arguments. The hinge of my argument is that, but I can say that data entry is about 10% of the population.
Based on what study was that from?
I looked this up this morning.
Man, was that the arbitrary website of pulling it out of your ass?
Okay, fuckwit. If that's the way you want to,
Fuckwit U? Is that where that study came out of?
No, it's not from Fuckwit U. But you can go fuck yourself.
The two of you, listen. If we're gonna dish,
I was going to look up the website.
Pull his stats up, but now he's not gonna out of spite.
No, I'm not.
Now he's not gonna give us the data.
No, both of you, shut up for a second. Okay, listen. I just want to clarify. If we're gonna shoot shots, we got to be able to take them back. So I don't want to hear any complaining about the other person talking shit or saying that. Just so we're clear going forward, I don't want to hear any complaints. All right, back to you, Tony.
Okay.
You were going to tell us where that study came from and where your data was coming from. Since
I was, yes. And then you decided to be a dick about it. And now you can fucking look it up yourself.
You ruined it! Oh no!
Now because I called you a fuckwit back to you, you're going to be like, well,
no, because you said I was lying. You accused me of pulling the data out. Yes, is this pulling the data out of your ass?
You said 10% of the
population. And that's when I said, fuck you. You can go fuck yourself. You can go get the data yourself. I can even, I can tell you that the data I got came from the U.S. Census Bureau data on employment. You can now go and look up the data yourself.
And it says that 10%.
But if you're just going to accuse me of lying, I didn't accuse you of lying at any point in the debate. I didn't accuse you of making shit up. I have accused you of not knowing what the fuck you're talking about. And that is more and more transparent the longer that this debate goes. And I don't think I appreciated just how obnoxiously right-wing you were the first time you were on stream, but that's becoming more and more apparent. But I didn't accuse you of lying. I accused you of making unsubstantiated assertions. So as soon as I start,
What a dance of words that is. I didn't accuse you of lying. I accused you of being creative and dancing. Dude, you just mentioned that you wanted me to provide data and not assertions. And when I asked you for data,
you didn't produce any data, did you?
10% of the population. So when
you didn't produce any data, did you?
Are we ready to put our dicks away and put the rulers down and get back to the actual debate? Do you or do you not want to provide the data, Tony?
He doesn't.
No.
Yeah,
okay.
So,
the data's there. He can go look it up himself.
This is somewhat new to me, being on a debate where someone takes the affirmative, and then when you ask them for the data that backs up he wanted to come here and do this debate and make this argument, and now I really suspect that the data that he's got is not substantial, and this is the reason why he's putting on a big pout show and saying that he's not going to show it just because I called him a fuckwit. The real reason is because the data doesn't back up what he's trying to say, and when I said that you pulled it out of your ass, that's not accusing you of lying, it's accusing you of pulling it out of your ass. Like when someone says 10% of the population does data entry, come on, my guy. You know that sounds like something that someone just pulled out of their ass, right? Or are we not even going to be genuine about that?
Sorry, was that a substantive question? As far as I can tell, you've completely ignored any discussion about economic fundamentals because you demonstrably don't know anything about economic fundamentals. You took advantage of a lull while I was going to go and get the data in order to accuse me of lying about the data. Okay, that's not a good faith debating. That's not a good faith debating. That's not a good faith debating tactic, and I'm not going to indulge it. I came in here and I presented my argument. And I did ask you to substantiate your claim, and I was prepared to substantiate mine right up until.
Okay, all right, I'm done dealing with it. All right, I'm actually thankful we decided to end this one in an hour because I couldn't imagine trying to move forward if we're all going to put barriers in front of our information or our responses or our questions or whatever, because that's not how we debate. All right, that's not how we operate over here. I'm all for shitting on each other and throwing mud and all of those things, but I also don't want a debate where we're going to like withhold from each other and try to make that as if it's like the fucking answer. It's obnoxious. All right. So I've already dropped the link in the chat if you'd like to join for the Q&A, and maybe we can get something going forward, and maybe everybody wants to put their big boy pants on to move forward in this conversation. That's fine. But at this point, this is my first debate back tonight, and I was hoping it was going to be like really solid. And now I'm just irritated at both of you. All right, here's what we're going to do, gentlemen. I'm going to give you the space to do your closing statements. I highly recommend you keep all of your insults to yourself before I get even further irritated from all of this. So, Paranoid, we're going to start with you. You go ahead, and then we'll move on to Tony. Go ahead, Paranoid.
So, again, I think the premise of this debate is utterly silly. It's first of all, it's vague in saying that post-capitalism. It doesn't even provide what the actual solution was. And if you're listening, you're not watching, I have a shocked Pikachu face on right now that the person that said AI needs post-capitalism started the entire argument out with, well, actually, I meant socialism. I mean, I saw it from a mile away, but I guess that's where we're at. My argument ultimately is that technology does not dictate society or economic systems, that the problems that AI is surfacing are things that have already surfaced 100 years ago. Someone already mentioned great in the comments, the horse and buggy and the automobile. There's a million different examples of this. And just because AI is taking Google AdSense out of website click-throughs, again, does not mean we have to dismantle all of capitalism and replace it with socialism. This is just another one of these Trojan horse arguments. I really do think that AI does need some form of governance, but it does not require an entire regime change, right? we need data rights, we need labor protections, we need liability rules, we need to have audits and antitrust that already exist in the system we've got now. We have antitrust that breaks up large companies and prevents them from becoming incredible monopolies, right? Post-capitalism, socialism would actually be worse for AI, because the second the state controls the entire economy and the AI stack, now there's no chance of getting away from state surveillance, censorship, social credit score systems. That's exactly what happens when the state is now in control. And you're like, oh, well, it's shared resources. That's a fancy way of saying the state owns it and gives you small little rations on what you're allowed to use for it. So the premise of this entire argument would have been really solid if we had some data to back it up. If it were, here's the number of people in a certain industry, and you can't 10x them, because once you 10x everyone, and we came up with a data entry, once you 10x the productivity, they run out of data to enter. I think that's a silly premise, and when asked for data, you refuse to give it. So I don't know how else we can proceed in the debate when the person trying to make the affirmative can't even bring data to back up their assertion. So, I mean, I think we're done here.
All right. Okay. Tony, to you with your closing statement, sir.
Okay. May I share?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so here's the data on the distribution of jobs inside the U.S. economy. We can see, for instance, that about 2 to 3% are in educational services. The vast majority of those would be unemployed under my opponent's position. Administrative and support is 9.4% of the workforce. Those will be largely redundant under when their duties are automated. That is 17 million people around about. There are trade and administration portions to these other ones. Information technology is another 3%. Retail trade is another 12%. Those are also going to be heavily impacted by the rise of AI and automation. So the difference between the horse and buggy and the car, how much of the economy was based around horse and buggies? It wasn't that much. And as has been pointed out, they were replaced by other jobs that average people could qualify for. They could become mechanics. They could work in these other areas. But that's not going to happen here, because the average person can't become sorry, I'm just finding out where to stop the share. So sorry, I've stopped sharing.
No, that's okay. I got you.
This analogy with automotive industry, that vastly increased productivity, but it also created as many jobs as it destroyed roundabout. Automation and AI are going to destroy a bunch of jobs, and they're not going to be replaced. As much as my opponent apparently thinks that we need an infinite amount of data entry, and the people are willing to pay for it, that's not true. There's only a finite amount of data entry that we need, and there are only a finite and the people who are superfluous to that are not going to be employed. Similarly, there is only so much administration we need. There's only so much managerial tasks that we need undertaken. And the people and companies that are profit driven aren't going to accept the loss of just employing people to do work that they don't need done. They're going to sack those people, and they're not going to be able to find any jobs. There's only so many Uber drivers we need. Where else are they going to be employed? Are they going to be employed making chips? That's a very technical job that requires a great deal of expertise. I don't think that that's going to be enough to absorb 10% plus of the economy that just received their marching orders. So the idea that this is some niche element of the of the employment market. It's not. It's more than 10% of more than 10% of the market. That's getting up to 20 million unemployed people. There just aren't that many data entry jobs, and in order to employ them all as data entry clerks, who can do the work of 10 people, we would now need to be doing 20 million data entry jobs. For what? What are we data entering on? So we are losing a substantial portion, and as we lose that that consumption power, that spending power, the other companies are going to decide, well, we're not profitable anymore. We can't employ people because we were relying on all of these people who had incomes to actually fund what we were doing, and they no longer have free income. So AI is going to start us down this track. And the idea that competition in AI is going to keep us safe is a what if. Our recent history suggests that in the IT sphere, there's competition at the start between different corporations, and then there's one survivor, and that one survivor dictates to us. And if you think that the government is scary when it has access to your data, a corporation with access to your data will kill you if there's money in it. Smoking, the tobacco industry, automotive industries, plenty of industries, the health insurance industry. They'll kill you if there's money in it. You cannot trust that amount of power to a small number of corporations. And my opponent's suggestion, you can't trust the government. The government at least isn't profit maximizing. And there's nothing in a socialist system that demands the end of democracy or demands that the government be unaccountable to the population. It can remain democratic. It just gains excess control, additional control over the means of production. You still get a vote. You still get to vote out people you don't like. And the antitrust laws that my opponent keeps on referencing them, I notice they don't get applied to Google. I noticed they don't get applied to PayPal. I noticed that when they were applied to AT&T, they got applied the wrong way, so that you ended up with multiple regional monopolies rather than competing nationwide carriers. Those laws are ineffective and aren't protecting you from because of the political state, which is being corrupted by capitalist influence in the media and lobbying. So I think my opponent doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to economics. He clearly hasn't looked at the data on who's going to end up unemployed or how many of them there are, and he's just making an analogy to horses and buggies that is completely invalid, because it's 10% plus of the population. It's not a tiny little fraction.
Okay, perfect. Well said to both of you, gentlemen. Let's get through a few super chats, and then I do have a full house backstage waiting to come up and have the conversation with both of you. Shout out to Ayatin, member for 9 months, says down with the clankas. The clankas, honey. She comes up with a big 10, says we don't have enough smart people to, 1, maintain the plethora of AI systems, or 2, utilize these AI systems for good. Therefore, this is all going to get dystopic very fast if allowed to expand unchecked. Any thoughts from either of you? I think this is what Tony is kind of saying, and I think Paranoid, I'm guessing you would go against it, right?
Well, I don't agree with that. I don't think we need smart people to maintain these systems. I don't think we need smart people to utilize them for good. And maybe the analogy was lost here because maybe it wasn't abstract enough, but you can have plenty of Uber drivers that can go and pick you up a PlayStation or go and pick you up a sandwich. They don't have to know how to make a sandwich. They don't have to know how to make that PlayStation. They just need to know, here's the place I go to get the thing that a consumer wants, and I can bring that consumer the thing that they want. And one of the gatekeeping,
why would I pay an Uber driver to do that if I'm an Uber driver? If I'm an Uber driver as well, why am I paying another Uber driver to do that for me?
Because
if everybody's Uber drivers, why am I paying another Uber driver?
Why not? Why not pay another Uber driver?
Because I don't have money.
Why not? I thought you were an Uber driver.
Yeah, but nobody's paying me because they're also Uber drivers and they can drive themselves. Like this is the fundamental economic reality that if everybody's an Uber driver, if everybody in the economy is an Uber driver, how do we pay another Uber driver? If not, you're relying on the fact that everybody's going to pay me and I can pay other people. But if everybody's an Uber driver, why don't I just take my car and drive myself to where I need to go? Except that costs money and I can't afford to do it because nobody else is paying me because they're Uber drivers too. You can't have an economy based around Uber drivers. It doesn't make any sense.
All right. I can tell that you're getting caught up on the Uber driver aspect. So again, this part, it's democratizing and reducing the need for you to go and get a 2-year or a 4-year or a 6-year degree, because now that was a gate. That was being gate kept by having to go and get that education and those degrees. But now you can clearly say there's people doing paralegal work, for example, using AI to do paralegal work. So now you don't necessarily need an actual person to learn how to become a paralegal. They can become the manager of an AI agent that does the paralegal work.
I see what you're saying. He's basically saying, like, I want to try to offer the translation. He's basically saying, I don't need the degree to do the work. I simply can utilize AI for a position, right? Now, where the caveat might be for that, Paranoid, might be the pay scale might go lower, because if I don't have to have the education to do the job, right, then anybody can sit in that job. Now the competitive market now drops.
Exactly. And that means that someone that couldn't afford to to form a legal case, now they can, because the bottom of that dropped out. So now all of a sudden people that were priced out from being able to make use of that particular expertise, now it opens up a whole new avenue of consumers. So it's not just that someone gets fired and they're never doing paralegal work ever again. It's that more people have access to it. More people can do the job. And because more people can do the job, more people can afford to hire someone to do that job.
So if we lose people who are skilled and trained at law, if there's no market for those people, who writes the laws?
Well, we didn't say no market. Or what we're saying is we just lowered.
Well, yes, there is. You just said, like, there's no point going to a university for 3 years and paying however much money. By the way, paying the money, the fact that universities cost so much is in fact a relic of Ronald Reagan's attack on universities. University used to be cheap in the US before conservatives came in and priced everybody out of it. But why would I go to university for 3 years to study law? That costs money. I could be in a job earning money. Why am I not out there earning money? Why am I doing that? If somebody who's fresh off the street, fresh out of high school, can get exactly the same results.
I'd say, why would somebody go and spend $200 for a steak when they could have went to McDonald's and spent $7 and got a burger?
Yeah, but that doesn't, a steak doesn't cost me 3 years of my life. Why am I spending? Actually, a legal degree actually costs 5 to 7 years of a person's life.
Let's put a pin in this one. Okay, sorry. Let's put a pin in this one, because I do have a full backstage and I do know that you guys are on a time limit. So I want to be mindful of everybody's time, but also be able to give everybody an opportunity for
Good question, by the way. That was a great.
It was a very good question. Ayatin always comes in with the good ones. Also, she says, I want the Gauntlet, so pay your tomato tax. I think you guys have paid it. I'm guessing probably. I'm just going to grant it because whatever. Let's have some fun. Santa, of course, says Gauntlet. He wants the Gauntlet. Howard says to turn your mic down, Tony, but I don't think it was a high mic. I think it was just the difference between the two mics. Paranoid's gain is very well set, and he's got a condensed room. Yours is more open. I don't think it was too loud. I think it was just the difference between the two. Tom Carpenter, who is hanging out backstage, says he had a great meeting now for an interesting debate, even though he's already hearing some interesting takes. He is our AI guru, and I know we're gonna call him to the panel for this one. Howard says, Tony, you're spurging and whining. Please start making informed comments. You're welcome to respond if you want, Tony.
I don't feel the need.
Fair enough. And Tom Carpenter, of course, sends out 20 Raging Tomato gifted memberships, the gift that keeps on giving. Shout out to you. And he gives a gift to me of a big red dono on my screen, which is my most favorite in the whole wide world. He says, we only need so many horse carriage drivers. We only need so many car assemblers. We only need so many computer operators. We only need so many. And the argument was never right before. So it must be proven why AI is different, not just asserting that it is.
It's
Fair
different
enough.
because it targets a much larger percentage of the workforce. So much of what is done today is administration, finance, basic legal details, customer relations, talking on a phone, etc., etc. All of these are jobs that are just going to disappear with AI. And you're taking people who don't really have the capacity to develop a higher skill set, much less apparently do they have an incentive for developing a higher skill set. Apparently, we want to get rid of anybody who's got any training, so that we are at the mercy of what the AIs tell us, and nobody can present sound arguments or criticize what the AIs are telling us. So apparently, my opponent is suggesting that we move into complete serfdom to AIs. We get rid of anybody who might counter any arguments that the AIs make, and then try and somehow, without technical expertise, effectively make sure that the AIs aren't dangerous anymore.
You forgot the part.
Can't see anything going wrong with it.
You forgot the part where I also advocate that they all get sent to a gulag and get forced sex reassignment.
Ooh.
Why? In what way did I mischaracterize your statement?
Because
when I said
that
Go ahead, Paranoid.
you are unable
I feel it.
Why people should be in university for 5 years or 10 years in order to get a PhD. Why would anybody do that?
Go ahead, Paranoid.
Right. And I'm saying, just because I'm saying that it lowers the barrier of entry. So now anyone could go and do jobs that used to be gatekept from requiring a 2, 4, 6+ year degree. Just because you've lowered that barrier to entry doesn't mean that specialists don't still exist. Doesn't mean that people don't still get PhDs and degrees for the exact same reasons that they do right now today. The only difference is that now the pool is open for more people to participate in those industries. I feel to see why that's a bad thing. It seems like you're advocating against that.
Because I am, because the argument is that the reason that people go and get qualifications is so that they will get paid more at the end of it. Now I can spend 5 to 10 years of my life going to get a qualification, and I can be paid as much as the person who makes sandwiches in Subway.
That's kind of That's a rich assertion based on the previous debate was about school teachers, and that school teachers have to go and get all of these large student debts and get degrees and get specialized licenses in order to teach, in order to make less than, say, an assistant manager at a fast food shop. So that sort of disproves what you're trying to get at.
So something that somebody else said is an answer to my question. What is the incentive to go and get these degrees, to spend 5 to 10 years qualifying for them, if the pay when I emerge from them is the same as somebody who works in a Subway?
You've just described public education. You've just described a large majority of teachers in this country. Why would those people decide to get into teaching knowing that they're going to make about the same as somebody that's an assistant manager at a Subway? You answer your own question. I don't know.
No, I don't. So you are creating an economic incentive against going to do this, and 5 to 10 years is a large portion of somebody's life. They've got to keep themselves alive during that period. They've got to spend money on food, utilities, and housing. So they're running at a loss for those 5 to 10 years, and then they're coming out and they're not getting paid any. If they wanted to do this job, A lot of people go to the trouble of becoming teachers because they want to be a teacher.
Well, there you go.
That's
There's
what
your
they
answer.
want.
Wow, we solved it.
Yes, but if you increase the cost, but not many people want to be someone who is paid less than a subway.
Okay, well then they can be a subway manager. Problem solved.
Fair enough.
Well, who's buying the subway sandwiches? Again, this is you are trying to construct an entire market here. Sorry, you're trying to move on.
Yeah, that's okay. Howard says, Tony, sincerely, disrespectfully, you are wrong. Guys, shots. Could you let the guest speak without insults? All right, let's bring on the panel, gentlemen, and have ourselves a grand old time. This has been fun, but let's move it along. Here we go. All right, gentlemen, I do have one more hanging backstage, and I'm sure we'll be able to get him on here in just a bit. But let's go ahead. We'll kick it off with Vincent Caledonian. Welcome up to
Hi, how are you?
Welcome up to the panel. And just a reminder to those who don't know how we operate, somebody's got some feedback coming through. I don't know who it is. But if everyone else except for myself, Paranoid, and PhD Tony could mute up, that way we don't have these issues anyways, but you should all be muted. We're going to operate in a round robin style, one question, one person at a time, and then we'll move on to the next person. We'll do this until everybody gets their turn, and then we'll move into full open panel gauntlet mode. But in the meantime, everybody else shut the fuck up. Caledonian, to you, your question to either or both, please.
Hi, can you hear me fine?
Yes, we can hear you perfect.
Hi, PhD Tony, are you from or in Britain? You sound English.
No, I'm Australian.
Australian, sorry. So in Britain, our welfare system, the NHS, that was introduced post-World War II, because somewhere along the lines of 40 million people died, and Europe. But now in Britain, we've got somewhere along the lines of 1 million kids between 16 to 25 unemployed and not in education. And that's something like 1 in 5, 20% of that age demographic. So I think, or what I want to ask is, not what is best, but what is more likely. Do you think the growing role of AI in our society is causing children to find, not children, but young adults to find work? Because it's
no, I actually think that sorry, were you finished?
No, continue, please.
The United Kingdom is very different. It's engineered itself into a very difficult position by bad government policy. And this is where Paranoid does have a great point. The UK has by essentially increasing the amount of government approval for projects, increasing government intervention, increasing they've made it very difficult for brass tacks businesses to actually operate in the United Kingdom. And to undertake infrastructure. For instance, the average time it takes to approve a public construction in the UK is 5 to 8 years or something like that. And so there are some well-intentioned, I think, policies but the UK has wrapped itself up in red tape to the point where its markets just aren't competitive, and I think that's what's driving the economic stagnation of the UK and the eye-watering unemployment rates. That said, I'm not from the UK, and I've not made a deep study.
I don't know. What do you think?
Did he click out? Okay, Tony, I think you froze. If you can hear me, we'll give him a second to come back. Okay, we got you.
Okay, sorry. But was that? I think that AI hasn't really kicked in yet.
Paranoid. What do you think?
I just have to piggyback on that. I think that if socialism could have one tagline, well-intentioned, that would be like the best tagline for socialism. Like, well, we had the best of intentions. So I really don't think that there was a strong argument made that socialism is the answer here. I think that Tony made some great observations. Like, yes, the AI is going to cause all of this displacement without question. But I'm failing to see the ... therefore socialism required.
Well, as I alluded to there, 20% of that age demographic is now unemployed and not in education. So they're now on welfare, and welfare isn't universal basic income. But that's where I think this is going in the UK. I've got another question. First to you, Paranoid, do you think technology is a more powerful social force than freedom?
Then what?
Than freedom.
Freedom.
No, definitely not. I think freedom would supersede all other forces. Because freedom is the first requirement for everything else to be able to operate freely in that system, right? I'm a very strong believer that it goes First Amendment and then Second Amendment, because you have to have freedom first and foremost, and then you got to have guns to back up the freedom. Like they're written in the order that you're supposed to practice them.
PhD Tony, do you think technology is a more powerful social force?
I think it depends. I think the fundamental element of a society requires a limitation on antisocial behavior. A society cannot. There are limits on how antisocially you can behave and still be considered a member of society. And technology does play a role in identifying and holding accountable people who are antisocial. Now that can be taken to extreme levels. The Chinese Communist Party, for instance, with social credit, etc. They're an authoritarian government. They're not a socialist government. But the idea that owning long arms is somehow a protection against a government that has tanks and drones, I think that's just unrealistic. Society relies on attention. You have some liberty, but as soon as your liberty ends at my nose, right? So as soon as you start having a negative impact on the people around you, your liberties get curtailed. So it's not just a question of freedom, it's a question of social versus antisocial and balancing those tensions.
I think that... sorry.
Carry on. No, carry on.
I think that technology is a more powerful social force. We saw with the advent of the automobile, there was no turning things back, and that changed our social system. The same with computers, the same with the smartphone. The more pervasive technology is in our society, our freedoms do roll back. And if technology is a more powerful social force than human freedom, and I know, Paranoid, you don't agree with that, but then I think that technological dystopia does await us. And I'd like to, sorry, I know I said that was my last question, but I would like to just make one more question to Paranoid. Paranoid, have you heard of Roko's basilisk theory?
Yeah, absolutely. That's basically where you say like, I trust you, AI. I want to help you, because when the AI goes back and reads your chat history from 20 years ago and it finds out you were anti-AI, then you're the first on the chopping block. So Rocco's Basilisk is almost like the AI version of Pascal's wager, right? It's like, be nice to the AI so that AI lets you go into heaven instead of sending you to hell. And let me just point out a great question you had between like the freedom versus technology, because neither of those exist in a vacuum. And even your example of the car being this new technology, well, the car was incredibly successful in the US, but part of that was the car culture and the open roads and being able to drive long distances in this huge national interstate system that we had. It was kind of unheard of elsewhere. That was another large part of that. It was the freedom of the open road, which then incentivized using that technology. So they're kind of symbiotic, the way that both of those things would operate. The same way that technology can enhance the amount of freedom that you have, but maybe you can't develop that technology without having the freedom to develop it, right? So it's almost like a chicken and egg quandary.
Can I just say that I think Rocco's Basilisk, that online thought experiment, that proposition, that's the reason why I do not think that AI requires a post-capital society, because I don't know, I'm not sure when the advent of AI is. I mean, I know we could get into Turing and McCarthy, what they thought in the 50s. I don't want to conceptually brood on AI. However, if you are aware of that thought experiment that proposes that in the future, for example, a super intelligent AI could be created that would have the ability to manipulate the past to reward and punish us in order to ensure its own creation. That, to me, that is brain bending. And so I think AI does not require a post-capital system, and I'm not exactly sure when and where the advent of AI will emerge.
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't have AI, but I will just make a note on Paranoid's point there, that the highway system that was built in the US that facilitated that travel was actually funded by having a top marginal tax rate in excess of 90% at the time that it was built. That was when a lot of dams and infrastructure in the United States were built that the United States can now no longer afford to maintain, let alone extend, because its ability to because it had become unwilling to tax the wealthy and the wealthy and corporations.
Well, and the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 might have had a little bit to do with that as well, but
fair enough. All right, thank you, Caledonian. Let's go ahead and move on. LLM Degrader, your question to either Paranoid, Tony, or both.
Thank you. And thank you all for putting this on. Okay, I get one question, to be clear.
Generally, yeah, like
Okay.
a question or two, like no more than 5 minutes
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay, yeah, all right, I have to pick. All right, I have one question for Tony. I was curious if you think that there is some conceivable job class where that job relies mainly on AI to perform its tasks. So such that the worker's primarily not thinking about the tasks that the AI is completing underneath. Could something like that exist? Like, say, maybe not now, but in like the near future, like 3 to 5 years.
I'm not sure I completely understand the question, because sort of the human input, human control of AI doesn't require the human to be that deeply involved in the problem per se.
Yeah,
That's the whole point of AI.
It can be kind of like a very plain interpretation of what I'm saying. Like, could there be a job where maybe even like the computer is almost abstracted away from the human? The human maybe talks to the computer, and through that they're talking to this AI, and they can complete an entire job through this set of interactions and get a salary through that.
Well, I mean, but so in order for the person's input into the system to be valuable, it has to be the case that either no one else can do that more cheaply, or no computer system can do that. And my argument would be that there just aren't enough of those sort of oversight jobs. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think these oversight positions was what Paranoid was suggesting that everybody would be able to do. Everybody would be, all of those people who do data entry now would essentially be doing oversight on AI systems that were doing data entry. But you're not going to get paid unless the work needs doing. So you can't just say we're going to do more work now. Work doesn't drop out of the sky. You can only do the work that people are willing to pay for. Yes, I think that those oversight jobs are going to exist. I just don't think there are going to be many of them. And I think that the people who aren't filling those are just going to get sacked as surplus to requirements. That's certainly my experience of how corporations have behaved in the past, and I don't see why it would be any different in the future.
Okay. Yep. Not a setup or anything. I'm genuinely curious.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you for answering.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mr. Tom Carpenter, also known as Jax's friend, your question to either of them, please.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say Kraut's looking really good tonight.
Kraut, you look beautiful.
The other thing is Paranoid. I want you to know I'm not here for you. I'm not here for you, but the lightning's still going to get you. But I am here to ask PhD Tony a question. So here's my thought. I wonder, well, I don't want to assume anything. Are you familiar with Microsoft Excel?
Yes.
Okay, so Microsoft Excel is one of the most widely used applications in the world. About 1.3 billion people use it worldwide, or at least have a license for it, whether they use it or not. But the interesting thing is that if you go back to 1980, at that point in time, we had around 1.5 million people that you could loosely categorize into a job role that you might call number cruncher. And that was worldwide. And today we have somewhere closer to 70 million people that you would put in that exact same category. Interestingly, that is with the advent of VisiCalc, Lotus 123, Excel, and all of the other spreadsheets that came along over the decades that automated number crunching significantly. I mean, no one would, if you did it back in the 80s like we did, and then you do it today, and just with Excel, no one would question that you can do it 100 times faster today.
Yep.
And yet there are a magnitude of times more people employed in that job role. So wouldn't you say that's a really good example of automation or making things faster, ending up resulting in more jobs because we see a new demand, because we have the potential to fill it? And a lot of times the reason we don't have more people doing things is simply because we can't fill the full potential that's available to us.
I would agree that that's an example, but the advent of computerization led to a significant increase in productivity, and then people were able to do more, and this actually to some extent helped Ronald Reagan out because it concealed the fact that trickle-down economics is bullshit. It doesn't work. But your central point is correct. But at base, I don't see that, for instance, a person working now on a data entry, where are their jobs going to be? Like you say, here's this task, here's this automation. We can now handle larger data sets. We can now handle more complicated, multi-dimensional data sets, and we can process and we can filter them out. How much more efficient can that get? And how much more of that do we need done? And I don't see that we need a tenfold increase in processing data sets as AI promises. I do take your point, but I don't see that that's going to soften the blow of us losing 10% of our I just don't see how those people are employable. And maybe that's my fault. You're right. this could be my myopia. I could just be lacking the imagination to see into the future how this can work out. And that could just be my limited vision, my limited understanding, and everything could work out. But I would argue that even so, we should be moving to AI, because to a collective ownership of capital. And the reason that I say that is not just because of the outstanding social problems that I briefly discussed in my presentation, but because of the situation in the US, where the wealthy are exerting an undue and corrupting influence on your regulating mechanisms. Your Supreme Court, your Congress, and your presidency are being, it appears to me, corrupted by an overly powerful media that serves corporate interests, and by just direct corruption of money flowing into the system. And if you have an AI company that gets more and more personal information on people, the pattern that I identified during the discussion of, in AI, you tend to have lots of competitors at the start, then they all fall away and you're left with one. If that is a private corporation that has all of your search history, that has all of the questions you've ever asked your AI, that has so much personal information about you, how you're likely to vote, how it is best to impact you, and that is under the control of a private corporation. And I don't trust Paranoid doesn't trust the government with that much data. I don't trust private corporations with that much data, particularly in a democracy that is stressed the way the US is stressed.
I can appreciate that. I do want to say, though, anyone who thinks that the government's not already using AI, it's just called machine learning. It's not called local language model or large language models. They've been using AI to figure out how to manipulate you for well over 20 years. So yeah. that's not going to be anything new. But what I would say is, I think that, first of all, I'll respond to what you've said. It sounds like then that AI is just another reason for getting socialism, which you desire. So it's not the main thing, but it's another reason. And the real desire is you prefer socialism over capitalism, and AI is another reason for that. But the comment that I'll leave with, and then you can say whatever you want. Well, first of all, I need to say that I came in as OG Thunderbite tonight, Sarah, because that was for Ioton, because she didn't know who in the world I was in Discord. So I thought I'd let her see it on the screen, and so she would know I am the original gamertag Thunderbite, the first one in history from the 1980s. Thank you very much. And all the other Thunderbites are fakes and frauds. But so here's the comment that I'll leave you with. I think that one of the reasons we are challenged, we find it hard. So my job, my responsibility is to continually look into the future and predict what knowledge people need. That's basically the role that I play, and in a specific knowledge domain, but that's what I do. And so having to do that, I have to spend a lot of time thinking about what's coming and what's next. And what I've learned is it's better not to look at a data analyst. It's better to say, what is the output of a data analyst that we desire? And when you begin to change your perspective to that, then you start to see where the opportunities are for new job roles, for new skills, for new tasks that we're going to need people to perform, because it's not about moving fingers across keyboards. It's about the end objective that we desire. And then we ask, if we can get more of that output, what could we do with that? And a perfect example is, the more data you can get into your system, the faster you can get it in, the better AI can work for you and do more things for you. So I think there's a lot of potential for jobs created from this. I think all of us are struggling right now to see exactly what those will be. But I personally just have a hard time, having studied history of technology, believing that this one's going to be any different. Now, I'll just leave it there and let you respond.
Okay. Well, I do take your point. My concern is that my concern is that the jobs that are being created are highly skilled jobs, And I don't want a system, jobs that require a lot of training or a lot of intellectual agility in order to do. And we're losing a lot of jobs where the people who hold them don't have those skills. And so those jobs that are being created aren't going to be suitable for the people who are losing their jobs. That's my concern. If the jobs that are created are unskilled jobs that any data entry person can just slip over to that job, that's fine. My concern is that those new jobs that are being created are actually going to have a high threshold to enter in terms of skill sets or in terms of intellectual ability. And a lot of the jobs we're losing, they're not that. So that's my concern about that. But as I concede, like you could be quite right. This could be a storm in a teacup, and I'm concerned over nothing. That would still make socialism we have some stresses on our modern society where a lot of influence and a lot of power is very, very localized into the wealthy. And I don't see why any one person or one family, under any circumstances, ever needs more than $200 million. Like, I don't see why we tolerate the existence of billionaires. They have no right to have that much money while people are starving, right? That's just morally wrong. And so we need to go. Clay, I can see you talking, but you're muted. So is that for your benefit?
No, everybody has to stay muted. He's doing what he knows.
All right. Anyway, so I do feel that there are social ills at the moment that can only be addressed if we move to a socialist system. But I also know that everybody has been programmed to say socialism is bad, socialism is evil, socialism is authoritarian. We socialize a lot of our systems. And in the rest of the world, we socialized healthcare, and you guys don't seem to have gotten the memo. And it's costing you a truck ton of money. Like it's really costing you a lot, and unnecessarily so. It's simply because you don't like the word socialism. Mm-hmm. It seems irrational.
Can I just write?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I know you wanted to. Go ahead.
I think that OG Thunder, the original Thunderbite from the 80s, and everyone else is a fake. But like rightfully pointed out, that the top of this debate could have been the rise of AI means we all need to be vegetarian. The rise of AI means we all need to buy Taylor Swift's new album. The rise of AI, like it was just using AI as a vehicle to then shoehorn in a predisposed bias that we already had, regardless of what the argument was going to be, right? That seems abundantly clear at this point.
Well, given that you changed the terms of the argument in your last debate, I'll accept you as the subject matter expert on that. But actually, I think that the fact that, as I have maintained several times throughout this, the idea that 10% of the population is at risk of losing their jobs with no immediate replacement for them is a very direct driver towards a socialized system that we have not previously faced. You can either internalize that statement or not. If you're not going to internalize it, the least you can do is shut up about your inability to internalize it.
Well, I thought we all just heard you concede that you might have been wrong about that, and that rightfully data entry has expanded in the amount of jobs it's providing, not reduced. So didn't you just concede that, and now you're going back on your concession?
The concession of uncertainty is not a concession of error.
Okay.
And the fact that you don't understand what uncertainty and error are in this context tells me quite a bit about you.
All right, let's move it on to Ant. Ant, your question or comment to either or both, please.
Well, what I haven't really heard brought up, and why I don't think that we need to fear LLMs coming in and replacing all these jobs you think are going to vanish when, because as a result of more adoption of LLMs, is the fact that they hallucinate. And if you're not an expert in that field, it's very unlikely you'll even spot the hallucinations, because you won't have the knowledge to identify that. So LLMs, great tool for removing a lot of redundant tasks or quickly accessing information, but as far as running a field, I don't think so.
Yeah, but again, it's not the experts or the highly intelligent, highly qualified people that I'm worried about. I'm worried about low-income people who aren't highly qualified, whose jobs are repetitive and whose jobs are mundane.
But as others have pointed out,
I'm worried about those people losing their jobs and the effect that and the knock-on effects that 10%, potentially 10 to 20% of the population in a reasonably short span of time having their jobs evaporate and not having the skills to move to new jobs.
We've seen this, but as others have pointed out, that we've seen this with every disruptive technology. This isn't new.
Really?
And the market will adapt.
Did 10 to 20% of people work on horses?
I don't know the numbers from the 1800s on buggies and stagecoach hands and couriers and all that other stuff. I'm sorry, I don't have that number.
It wasn't 10 to 20%.
I don't know what it is.
Less than that.
It's not the point. It doesn't really matter.
It does matter because
no, it really doesn't.
It really does, and I'll explain.
It really
why.
doesn't, because we're not comparing. I'm not comparing to like just the introduction of the automobile. It's like there's numerous introductions of technology over the last 150 years.
Such as?
How about the World Wide Web? That put some of humans' knowledge in our hands.
Put out of work? Who lost their job because of the World Wide Web?
I don't know.
Was the
libraries?
World Wide Web?
Libraries, librarians probably suffered.
Actually, how many libraries did close down?
I don't know.
They're government funded, aren't they?
I mean, they're publicly funded, or they're funded by universities who maintain their own library. So I'd be very surprised indeed if libraries did in fact close down.
I don't think they closed down.
And again, how much of the population works in libraries?
But this isn't the point.
But it is. Well,
the point is that you need experts. You didn't. This regardless of the point. This is a side point. You already talked about. I asked a question about LLMs hallucinating and how they cannot replace people in that field. They become a valuable tool in that field, but they aren't a replacement for people in that field. I'm sorry we got sidetracked on another topic. I just brought it because it was kind of relevant, but we've already gone over it. I heard your answer before.
My response was that it's not people who are experts whose jobs I'm worried about, though apparently if paranoid gets his way, I should be worried about that because there's no possible economic incentive for them to spend 5 or 10 years acquiring their expertise, so they're going to go extinct after a generation. But it's the low-skilled people who cannot easily shift. You're talking about why
can't they easily shift? If they're low-skilled labor, that typically means that they're young people. They can easily be educated and retrained for their jobs.
No. What are the jobs?
Any other jobs? The jobs are going to go away. There's going to be work that needs to be done that can't be done by a computer.
But there are people working in those jobs already, right? We have 4%. You have 4% unemployment. This means that there are.
Granting you if they lose their jobs at all.
I think you're underestimating.
Why would they keep their jobs?
Most data entry people are ride or die. They're like, I'm going to be data entry until the day I die or else. Like they're not going to change into another.
What are the jobs that
I don't even know why you bring up data entry, considering, yes, maybe for digital to digital or logistic integration, LLMs could do really, really well. But a lot of data entry is taking physical records and putting it into a logical system. An LLM can't do that. Yeah, exactly.
Can't they? You can't digitize it?
You can
recognize. They can't recognize text.
That still requires labor. It's an LLM is a logical construct. There's no arms and legs.
This is like when you call customer service and you get a fucking machine. And do you know how often I throw shit at a fucking wall because the computer can't understand what the fuck I'm saying, even though I've said my birthday in 10 different variations and blah, blah, blah. It's very frustrating, by the way. I'd much rather call a fucking human.
You'd much rather call a human But do the corporations care that you'd much rather talk to a human?
They do when I start yelling representative, 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 and then finally the system shuts down. It's like, I'm transferring you to a person.
And how many phone operators are still losing their job? So
And
yes,
people with
one
substitute products that have better customer support will get their business because people get fed up with being treated crappy by one company. They'll move over to the other. Competition resolves a lot of these problems you're bringing up, which ironically you don't have in a socialist system. There's only one firm making anything.
That's a mischaracterization of socialism.
No, it's not. It is not. It is how socialism works.
No,
it's not. It is
Well,
how it works.
and in all fairness, so Tony, hold on, because you just said about how there shouldn't be people with billions of dollars while other people are starving, right? But in a capitalist society, that competitive nature between companies allows somebody to have the incentive to become the billionaire. That's why they integrate, incorporate, become new systems, find better ways, and want
and
more
become
customers
such a company so that they don't have any competitors anymore.
But my thought process here is, in a socialist version of that society, what am I competing for if we're all just going to have the same amount of money, or I'm not allowed to hit beyond a certain amount?
You're not all going to have the same amount of money. Where'd you get that from?
Well, where's the competition?
Your money, comrade.
If you're saying I shouldn't be allowed to be a billionaire, right? Then why? What am I? What's my motivation? If I'm just going to be capped out at a number, then I have no reason to compete after I hit a number. It's like the participation trophy that everybody gets.
So $200 million isn't enough for you to live on.
It doesn't matter. What's the motivation?
But
what's your business? How much I fucking make? If I earned it legally, what's your business?
So I don't see that anybody should have.
I don't care what you see. Like, why is it your business how much I make?
It's not how much you make, it's how much wealth you have. There's a distinction
what's
between
the difference?
Do you understand the difference? If you don't understand the difference, then
okay, so are your problem is income or how much you're worth?
It's wealth.
Okay, so you're having a problem with how much someone's worth. Your problem is that they have been successful and accumulated things for themselves and their family to pass on, and I'm really failing to see the problem here.
The problem is those people with that amount of wealth also provide a very large amount of jobs to others outside of there. So if you shut down a person's ability to keep going, well, guess what? What is their motivation to hire more people or diversify and create more jobs around?
Have I been muted the entire time? So, John, is this 2-on-1, or am I going to get to respond at some fucking point to something that somebody said?
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. In the 1950s, the top marginal tax rate in the United States was 91%. That is to say, people in the top income bracket were having 90% of that money taken away by the government. Did the United States become a communist hellscape in the 1950s? No. Was the government able to afford a massive program of infrastructure construction in the 1950s? Yes. So the idea that if you tax basically 100% of income above a certain level, some people are all of a sudden going to go, fuck it, I don't need to do this anymore. That is demonstrably not true. We have historical examples of economies, the American economy, existing and functioning quite well in spite of extremely high taxation on the rich. The claim that you have to lower taxes on the rich in order to so that they can become wealthier, so that they can employ more people, that's a myth. It doesn't work. I showed the level of wealth that is the level of national wealth that is currently under the control of the wealthiest 10%.
Who said anything about lowering taxes?
Yeah, you said you said basically like, why are there billionaires? They shouldn't be allowed to have that much money when it has nothing to do with taxes.
Well, can't I tax wealth?
No,
you can't. Talking about taxes.
Yes, I can. You'll find
it doesn't work.
You'll find that the government can indeed tax wealth.
Elon Musk worth? How much is Elon Musk worth? Like, did he just get like valued at like $1 trillion? Do you think Elon Musk has $1 trillion available to just pay your wealth tax?
Even if it's computerized money. Why should he have it?
It's not because it's computerized. It's because it's just paper wealth. It's what he's evaluated at. It's not what he actually has on him. He doesn't have access to that amount of money.
Yeah, then he's going to have trouble paying his share of taxes, isn't he?
That's ridiculous. You're making a criminal out of him for what? Being more successful than you?
No,
Sounds like sour grapes to me.
I'm making a criminal out of him because he's a criminal.
These are two topics that usually get struggled with when socialism comes up. It's liquidity.
I'm sorry, Sarah. I think he answered my question, and I think I'm done. Wait till the panel.
Yeah. Final thought to Paranoid, then we'll move on to Kraut.
Just that we're talking liquidity, right? Like, because someone's got worth $200 million doesn't mean that they go to the bank and pull $200 million out and they go and spend it, right? So it's not that difficult of a concept. And then if you've got somebody that wants to create a larger endeavor, let's say you wanted to put together a large AI data center, or you want to put out a new arena. If that arena costs $201 million, and that you just never get to do that, you don't get to work on certain projects that cost $201 million, it feels very arbitrary.
No. So in a socialized system, let's imagine, and there are multiple ways of doing it, but let's say that we tax all of the wealthy, we put it in an investment fund. You have a business idea. You go to the investment fund. You present your business idea. The investment fund says, you know what, that looks like it's a worthwhile thing to do. We'll release funds to help you set up the business. How is that? So you'll claim that large high cost investments simply won't happen. That's simply untrue. There are mechanisms by which it can.
Because that money that I'm asking for the investment fund, that was my money that they took from me, and now I'm asking them to give it back to me so that I can go and do a project. That's
you have so
nonsensical.
But the two, you don't seem to understand the central problem here.
I know I don't.
Is that capitalism has become, and I explain the mechanism by which this works. Private investment is a form of taxation on the population at large. We are being paid less, and we are paying higher prices, and we are suffering more externalities in the form of pollution and infrastructure degradation in order that people who are already rich can be paid more than market interest on their money. So we are being taxed by rich people to make rich people richer. This is unjust. You may not agree that it's unjust. You may say, well, they're wealthy. They deserve to tax us at this rate. They deserve to pay us lower wages and to make us work harder because their forebears did whatever, or they happen to have won the lottery a couple of times, which is effectively what Elon Musk did. He's not fucking Iron Man. He happened to be sitting in the seat when two of his companies were bought out by other companies, and then they got rid of him because his management sucks. The fact that he won the lottery twice, invested it in overvalued companies. In order to be worth its market cap, Tesla would have to sell more EVs than are sold worldwide. In order to meet its market cap, SpaceX needs $30,000 from every man, woman, and child in the civilized world, right? Every internet user needs to pay SpaceX $30,000 in order to justify its capex. That's not realistic. It's a fraud. Elon Musk is worth trillions of dollars because he has defrauded the economic system. Right, the numbers just don't fucking make sense when you look at them. And the fact everybody is here, why does Elon Musk deserve to have his money taken off him? He deserves it because he goes out and he hypes shit, and then never fucking delivers on it Do you remember we'll be on Mars by 2024? Do you remember we'll have hourly fucking rockets from New York to Dubai by 2025? Do you remember all of these bullshit promises that he came out and ladled you with? And his stock still goes up and up and up and up and up because suckers. And let's look at the SpaceX IPO. The SpaceX IPO was largely retail driven, and those retail investors, which is to say mum and dad investors, they were blocked from selling off the stock once they bought it for a period of 30 days. And he was guaranteed that your super funds, your 401ks, had to buy into his IPOs. He has taken all of this money from everyday people, and the actual wealthy people have stood back and said, well, he's wrong. That's not worth anything. But average investors, average mum and dad investors have bought into this fucking fraud, this Ponzi scheme, and nobody gives a damn. Well, I do give a damn. I think it's unrealistic. I think it's unethical, and I don't think it should happen. And I think the private investors ought to be protected from this bullshit rather than being thrown into a wood chipper like they are now.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to Kraut. Kraut, your question or comment, sir?
Hey, what's up? So I got a question, just to make clear where both these panelists stand at. Tony, do you feel AI would be a replacement to the working people, basically?
Yes. For a large portion of the workforce, I don't think that...
Hold on one second. Hold on. It's just a question to get your clarity on your stance. Paranoid, do you feel AI can be used as a tool for the American people?
Yeah, I don't think it replaces so much as it gives that person that used to swing a hammer a nail gun. That's the way that I see it.
Oh, yeah. So I would agree with Paranoid. Now, like Paranoid stated, there needs to be structures to make sure it doesn't overly take. And an example of how it could be argued that could happen, but I wouldn't agree with it, is all these electronic registers at Walmart. But, who wants to be a cashier anyway? To Paranoid's point, these AI tools can help people get a better job so they don't work as a cashier. Am I strawmanning or strongmanning Paranoid?
I believe, yeah, their job becomes, now they maintain the thing that does their old job. And technically they have a higher job now because they're like a manager of AI employees. I mean, I know it's abstract, like but that's the way that I see it. It's upward mobility. They're actually now have a better job than the one that got replaced.
I got you. It's like, yeah. So I basically yield my time, but I do just want to say one more thing. I see people in the chats are making fun of my photo. I identify as a loving housewife, so leave me alone.
Okay. Well, can I? So
yeah.
So, but your argument makes no economic sense. So you're investing in the hardware for the AI. You're investing in the energy for the AI, and then you've still got a person that you're paying just as much. So you're paying more for this work. Who's covering the cost? Is it your customers that are covering the cost? So you have to increase your customers to cover your hardware, to cover your supervision, and to pay for this person. Corporations don't do that. If the person is not useful, they'll sack the person. They don't feel an obligation to keep people employed just because it would be mean to unemployment. If that corporation can operate with the hardware and without the person, they're going to do that. So the idea that you're going to keep the person and you're going to pay them just as much, nobody's losing any income, but we're also going to pay for the hardware and the energy cost of the AI. You've got money coming out of nowhere. Where is this extra money coming from to cover all of this cost?
I'm thinking of a practical example. If I go to my grocery store or I go to the Walmart in my community, when I go to checkout now, there's a self-checkout area that's got like another 8 to 12 self-checkout, and it's manned by like 1 or 2 people as opposed to 12 people, right? So it's not like they got rid of all the other checkouts and replaced them with just self-checkout. Now it's all those checkouts where you can just be 1 person per checkout, or I can go to the self-checkout that has 12 counters and only 2 people supervising. So they've actually added more.
No, you've gone from 14 people being employed to 4.
No.
Right? If you've got 2 men, so they've increased the number of they've just broadly increased the number of checkouts.
Correct. That's exactly what happened. Yes.
Okay.
It was additive.
All right. And what were the economic circumstances behind that decision?
To get more people checked out quicker. So now people would be more inclined to shop there, knowing I'm not going to stand in line for 40 minutes trying to check out. I can get in, get my stuff. So
those people shop. So those people that you've attracted to that shop, they're not shopping at another shop. So that other shop has gone out of business, and its people are unemployed, right?
Sure.
No, yes. So you would try. So at some point, somebody is losing a job.
If 2 businesses in a capitalist system, one provides a better service than company B, and people shop at company A instead of company B, yeah, the employees of company B might suffer. That doesn't mean bring on the socialism.
But it means that people are unemployed. How we got here was you saying that nobody's going to lose their job, and now you're conceding. Now in your very example, people are losing jobs, and you concede that people are losing jobs, right? So we're taking that to an enormous scale. You talked about companies scaling up. It's not just one company that's going to be able to replace a lot of people. It's all companies being able to replace a lot of people, and those people not having jobs that they can easily move to. Now, Thunderbite or Jax's friend or Tom Carpenter, or I've forgotten his name, the guy with the very intelligent question who
AKA.
I'm scared of calling him anything other than Thunderbite. He seems very attached to that title.
Don't forget Dale. Original.
Right, Dale. How could I forget Dale? His story about his dog being struck by lightning was very affecting. That was a real story, actually. That was insensitive of me to bring up. My apologies. There may be other jobs down the line that they're going to be able to go to, but in the immediate phrase, when they're let go, they're not going to be able to rapidly shift to another one. And I worry that it's going to require them to reskill in a hard way. And some of them may not be capable of undertaking. Well, I would argue my concern is a lot of them may not be able to complete the reskilling. So that's my concern here, is that we're losing a lot of jobs in short order. Maybe there'll be replacements down the line, but not all of these people are going to qualify for those new jobs. And that sort of economic stress in a short period of time, you're reducing consumption. People can't afford to go to the movies. People can't afford to go out. People can't afford to buy their groceries. People can't afford to buy cars. That has knock-on effects through the entire economy, and the economy can contract very, very violently unless there's some degree of control. So in order to forestall that, we need some sort of government exercise. And again, in order to forestall the sort of consolidation into a single corporation that runs AI globally, I think we need government intervention and government oversight. But you're welcome to disagree with me all you want. That's my opinion. And I consider that I've introduced at least some arguments that are persuasive, but apparently not for this crowd.
All right. Let's move on to Clay. Your question or comment to either of them?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, goodness. First off, before I ask my question, I want to thank you, Sarah, for putting up with this.
I love my job.
Yes, I know you do. I can't wait for the Gauntlet. Half of this debate could have been served on the Gauntlet, to be quite honest. Yeah. But I do appreciate the debaters for coming through as well. And before I ask my question, I just want to speak a little bit to the meta. Since so much meta exists up here, and Tony, you're really not going to like me on this, sir. This has been the most horrible debate, in my humble opinion. I was expecting maybe some technical things as to why it is that AI specifically serves the purpose in an economic system of socialism, but I did not get that. So I'm completely unconvinced. I appreciate Paranoid essentially bringing out there's a difference between America and Australia, and that is our rights. I appreciate that. You pointed that out, and you pointed out flawlessly, too, by the way, about how it exists in order. There's a reason they're written the way that they are. You have your first before the second, and so on.
We don't expect Australians to understand that, so that's okay.
No, sir. But with that said, I do have my first question here. Tony, what is your PhD in, sir? I can't hear you.
Is he muted? Is you
so.
like did you
Geophysics?
Geophysics. So you're not an economist?
No.
You don't do AI?
No.
Okay. So I'm trying to figure out where your expertise are on this, because specifically you were arguing earlier about credulity. That was one of your specific points, was credulity of PhDs. How PhDs are very important in this factor of why socialism is going to be necessary, and not just socialism, but a post-capitalist society, right? Why it's going to be necessary because of AI. Why is your expertise in geology necessary also in this other field? No, what is no? I don't understand. Hold on, before you go.
I didn't say any of the things you.
Hold on. I have more to this
question. I didn't say any of the things you're claiming I'm saying.
Stop. Let me ask more to this question. I don't need a 7-year diatribe either, sir. Go ahead.
I didn't say any of the things that you claim that I said. You've misinterpreted what I've said.
No, sir. I wrote it down. I specifically wrote it down. You were arguing about credulity to getting a degree, perhaps a PhD even. Yes, this is exactly what you were saying earlier. And I don't need a 7-year diatribe why it is that you believe that the credibility factor of having a piece of paper is more important than the experience on the machine.
Credibility and credulity are opposite. They are not related concepts. And I didn't say that. What I said was, you have two people come up to you, right? Come up to a board. One of them says, I know all about this. I've taught myself, trust me. Another one has gone through a degree. Now, and you can confirm that.
So the guy in the back said it instead of the guy who's talking.
Why don't you answer the question, since you know what I'm going to say?
So, yeah, I'll answer the question. So what you're telling me is that you don't trust what I'm saying. You trust the piece of paper, some doctor from like 1,500 miles away. That's who you trust. You don't trust the guy you're talking to. So what makes my word not bond, whereas this other guy from 1,500 miles away who wrote on a piece of paper, all of a sudden the experience, the literal experience, I can literally show you how to work this machine. I can get on it right now and show you how to work it. How is my experience not qualifying?
I didn't say it wasn't.
You're saying it's not as qualifying.
Well, maybe if you'd shut up long enough to let me answer the fucking question, you'd know. So I didn't say.
Let him talk, Clay. Let him talk.
No, I'm screaming. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, PhD.
I'm uninterested in responding to your question.
Well, of course you're not. So I'll go to Paranoid American. Essentially, we can have a conversation for a couple of minutes. Sir, I really appreciate that you, as an American, understand the difference between the socialist, I can't say it yet because it's Gauntlet, stupidity, the socialist and communist stupidity. I really appreciate that you point this out, sir, and you really came up against a wall that was never built, and that's my opinion of this. Really, somebody was saying that they were going to build a wall, right? And the person never even stepped foot onto the land, right? This person, go ahead.
You help double down on, I think, the most poignant note to be had here, and that's the entire premise that Tony came up. If I've got two people in the room, and one says, I know how to do this job, and I don't have a piece of paper, and the other one says, I know how to do this job, and I do have a piece of paper, well, what do? I guess I have to trust the paper. Well, how about that? I mean, this sounds like someone
not what I said. And your listening comprehension is as bad as Clay's.
Paranoid for a
I thought
couple
you were
minutes.
talking. I thought you didn't
want
have
to answer.
I'm not talking to you.
Hold on, Tony, because like you didn't want part of Clay's question, so he moved on to Paranoid.
I'll respond to Paranoid.
Well, hold
if
on.
Paranoid is mischaracterizing what I said too. If people are just going to be able to lie about what I said.
Tony, hold on for a second. Listen. Let Paranoid finish his response to Clay. Then you can correct the narrative. But you've been very interruptive all evening, so bear with me. My patience is running thin too.
Okay. So the point being that if two people sign up for the job, if you are chronically and you exist only in academia, I can see where it's like, up that paper, the paper means everything. In the real world, where I actually go and work for private industry and efficiency matters and meritocracy matters, you look at those two people and you're like, okay, both accomplished this task. Let me see how you accomplish this task right in front of me. I don't care what your paper says, and I don't care if you say that you know everything. Show it to me right now. And then based on that, on actual merit, that's who gets the job. It's not who has the paper. And trust me, I've worked in this industry for 2 to 3 decades. That's usually how it happens. If someone shows up and they just go, hey, I've got a BA, I've got a BS in this field, like, okay, I don't care. I know people that get BSs all the time and they don't know anything. They just coasted by on group projects. Sit down and show me how I can scale something. Sit down and show me what you can do in AWS. How can you refactor this old legacy code in Fortran and COBOL into something new? If you can tell me and explain to me how that happens, you get the job. I don't care what the paper says.
Yeah, and that's
so this is a mischaracter. I was told that I got to respond. I never said that a person can't be self-taught. I never said that a person with a degree can't be talking out of their ass. What I said was that if you know nothing else about the person, if you are capable of no other investigation beyond somebody's got a degree that says that they can do this, and somebody claims that they're self-taught, then the degree is a slightly more reliable indicator. You know that depending on the quality of the institution and the quality of their instructors, you know that at least something happened there that convinced the institution to give them the degree. That does not guarantee that they're suitable for your purposes. That does not guarantee that they still know what they knew when they did those courses. I never said that it does. That is a mischaracterization of what I said. You guys suck at listening comprehension.
No,
what I said was the acquisition of education is a reliable way of getting skilled people into the marketplace.
But that's not skill, sir. That's a piece of paper. Skills literally means that they're experienced.
So you're saying that a degree is utterly irrelevant, that people should not study.
No. Hold on. No.
Okay.
Stop it. No. Because now you're starting to put words in my mouth. And that's exactly what you're accusing me of doing. You actually did say and are still saying that the experience is not as important as...
No, that's not what I'm saying at all.
That's exactly what you're saying.
No, it's not.
Okay, so which is more important in the field of, I don't know, lawn maintenance? A degree or experience?
I don't think they offer degrees. I don't think. Was that a question or?
I have 20 years of experience. I've actually owned my own company. At that point, does he want to hire me or the guy that comes in and says, I got a degree in golf course maintenance, which is actually a thing. I've got a degree. I went and studied how the grass grows, man. It's cool. This is the way it works. It's actually biological and all that shit, but I don't know how to run a machine. I've never touched a machine. I've never ran a weed whacker. I've never ran a edger. I've never driven a tractor, right? Okay? This is the difference between someone who knows what they're doing, who has experience, versus the person who says, I got a degree. And you know what? My professor says I did a really good job on the test last week, but you know what? I don't know how to run a machine, bro. This is the simple concept.
When at any point did I say that experience is that experience and the demonstrated capacity to undertake a task is less important than a degree? When did I say that?
No. You have been saying that, sir.
No, I haven't.
But ultimately, look here. I'm going to give you some.
It should be fucking easy for you to point out where I did.
You have been saying it. You have been saying it. But regardless of that, or at least it's my perception.
Okay, but that gets back to my claim about your listening skills.
Try more harder.
Okay. So you're accusing me of something that I didn't say, and you're angry about it, and you won't listen to me. And you won't listen to me when I say that isn't what I said.
5 minutes for you to cry about it.
I'm done crying about it.
Okay, so now I have to give you some credit, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, and I want actually Paranoid to respond to this. I do believe that a very highly regulated, socialized system needs to be in place within the United States, within the government, so that the government itself is regulated. Also, the very, very large companies need to be regulated so that they can be broken up a little bit if they get too big and that sort of thing, get too much power, blah, 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 blah. However, with that said, the United States is a primarily capitalist society, and it hinges on freedom and the things that certainly would have been discussed in the recent last few days, our 250 year anniversary. I just want to give a big shout out to America for 250 years of freedom and how everybody wants to be like us, but they can't be us because they ain't free like us. So go ahead.
Can I ask what freedoms you have that I don't?
Yeah, I can walk around with my big old musket. One's for shooting, one's for fun, by the way.
Yeah, I can order 1,000 rounds of ammo in my house right now.
In what circumstances could you do that in the middle of, say, Washington, D.C.?
I can't do it in Australia.
You can certainly own firearms in Australia, yeah.
Yeah, I can't walk around with none of them handguns on my hip.
Not inside a city, no.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there's one out of a million.
Why would you? So okay. So your argument is
on the planet is absolutely asinine, right? This is why actually when you showed your graph, I had a question about that. Where was the point? The point that you were making was that the statistics of people who are doing data entry, I didn't see that on your graph, sir, by the way. That wasn't on your graph. Data entry was not on your fucking graph. You're a liar, dude. You were saying that it's 10% of the population. Where is that on the data entry thing? That's not on the graph. I pulled it back. I looked.
Right.
Yeah, you're a liar.
Administrative in support.
I stopped.
Administrative in support.
Thank you,
does that involve data entry?
250 years. Woo-hoo.
Does that involve data entry, sir? Does administration and support involve data entry?
I think that a lot of the confusion debate here in this after part was caused by Tony, because Tony doesn't make a lot of statements. What he does is he asks these open-ended questions that implies the answer. So then when you try and pin him on it, he's like, well, I never said that. Well, technically he didn't say anything. He just asked a bunch of leading questions and never actually made a statement and said, and here's why I believe that, and here's the data that backs that up. It's more like, well, what happens to those people people, do you think that they still get their job? Like, if you want to imply something, just make the statement and back it up. Enough of these like weasel questions.
Well, I was going to yield too, but I want to say this one last thing. Yes, I see that. And the funny thing is he has a lot of questions, but no answers. In fact, he even stated that in his field, he doesn't look for actual answers. He doesn't look for proof. He looks for evidence, right? So he can lay all the evidence out on the table and ask question after question after question and never puts the pieces together.
Can I just point, this is one of my favorite
That's
stories.
an idiotic statement.
One of my favorite
claim,
stories that got me into Francis Bacon. There's this story called The Horse's Teeth, and I promise this will be the shortest tangent ever. And if no one's ever heard the story of the horse's teeth, there was like 14 academics and clerics and all of the smartest people in town, and they got together and they got into this 2-week-long debate over how many teeth were in the horse's mouth. And once they thought that they came up with the logic and they figured out, well, because this Bible statement and this, some dumbass walks in, opens up the horse's mouth and counts the teeth, and everyone is shocked at this crude bumpkin, this low wage, low skill employee. How could he possibly add anything to society? And he was just like, you guys have wasted how much time debating when like I can just go in here and just do the damn thing. And I think that that's like the disconnect where Tony and I and maybe some of you are just, we didn't live these same lives. He's the guy that sits and debates for 14 days how many teeth are in the horse's mouth.
Well, can I say something too on that one? So I love our Second Amendment. Just this is the last one. And the reason that I love it is because when we have our Second Amendment in application, we have to watch what the fuck we say. So we do more. There's only 2 things you control in your life: what you say and what you can do. And the more you do, the less you say.
All right. Fair enough. Let's move on to Spin. Your question or comment, please.
Well, I'm going to touch on something Clay said. Can AI run a camera in the middle of a field?
Yes.
Oh, it can.
Yep.
How'd that camera get there? Did the magic AI fairies,
well, the AI could have hired a drone that went and grabbed the camera that has never been touched by human hands and brought it to that field and then went back to its docking station. Yeah.
Oh, it went back to its docking station. Oh,
I mean, are you saying that
how
that's
did
not
it hook up?
possible?
How did it hook up? How did it hook up to potential power sources?
Another drone.
Oh, another drone. Who's flying that drone?
AI.
Oh, who programmed AI?
AI.
Oh, you're full of shit.
But nobody's losing their job. Like all of this stuff is AI, but nobody's losing their job. Trust me. Yeah, they'll still be. And you raise a peripheral point in that the people who are at least risk from AI are actually the people whose jobs require them to get out, run cables, check that the cables are working, employ their expertise. So the people
according to the dumb fuck, AI is going to do that.
Well, there are tasks that involve manual agility and bodily presence that AI is ill suited to at the moment. It will take the development of much more advanced robotic systems, which is not. But there are a lot of, for instance, running cables in a plane. The cables that are run down planes, that's done by ferret. It's not done by robot. It's not done by a machine. You tie a string to the ferret runs down the pipeline and pulls the cables behind it. So and to some extent, actually having a person tag the cable, jerk the cable if it gets snagged, work out what it's snagged on. That's not easily replaced by AI. AI is not going to be able to do a lot of these get out in the field and look at what you're saying jobs. I think you're quite right. I think that there are limits on what AI can achieve in a practical sense.
Those ferrets are all going to be unemployed too, with no other jobs to go to.
Well, sadly, they don't even get paid, those ferrets. But my concern, and I think that Spin is correct that there are jobs that are and reasonably accessible jobs that are just not under threat from AI. I agree entirely with that point. My problem is that I don't think that there are that many of those jobs. And I worry, my concern is that a lot of low-skilled people are going to be made unemployed and are not going to be able to transfer to other jobs very quickly. That's my concern with AI. Maybe I'm jumping at shadows, but my concern is that. I also think that there's a lot of corruption of government, legislation, politics, and media that's going on at the moment, and that if we move to a more responsive government that was more tightly under the control of the people, that we could prevent some of those negative things from occurring.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the dumb fuck. Every time he's on, I'm going to call him a dumb fuck because he's dumb fuck.
Okay.
Yes, you paranoid.
Yeah, you have to spell it out for me. I'm a little bit slow.
Well, speed up AI. Maybe ask AI how to speed up your brain. So I was out in the middle of the National Mall the last 3 days. Last 3 days. I had to drive up there. AI didn't drive me up there. I drove myself up there.
Congratulations.
Yeah. According to you, AI can do everything.
You could have taken a Waymo.
No, thank you. I do not want to get unalived. But my point is, I pointed the camera. I programmed everything. AI didn't do it for me. AI couldn't possibly know what settings that I'm doing.
No, that would be a skill issue. That means that you don't know how to tell your AI how to do its
Listen,
job
dumb
properly.
fuck. What I'm trying to tell you is there is no way a fucking computer can tell, or AI can tell me how to set my white balance. No, AI cannot set it for me.
That's silly because most cameras today have an AI feature built in that helps you set your white balance.
Okay,
that is
okay. So my
the
brand
dumbest
new
thing I've heard
Canon
you say, and that's
EOS
saying a lot for this show.
So my brand new Canon EOS has
Yes.
an AI function.
Yes, many of them do. If you look at a 2026 camera, they have AI enhanced
Hey
white
Google
balance.
or Hey Siri, set my white balance for me. You are the stupidest motherfucker I have ever talked to. Seriously.
You think a chatbot represents all of AI?
I yield because we ain't on the Gauntlet. And let me tell you, when we get to the Gauntlet, I'll tell you how really stupid you are. Go ahead, Sarah.
Fair enough.
Did y'all miss me?
I'm actually shocked, Spin. I told you a long time ago you are a Democrat, sir, that thinks he's a right-winger, and you just confirmed every ounce of every time I say that. Mr. Balderson, Mr. Balderson, final question to you, and then we will move into the Gauntlet. And if anybody wants to leave there, more than welcome to. I mean, I'm not holding you hostage, but go ahead.
She
Mr.
says
Balderson.
that for legal purposes. There's actually a guy behind me that
Sometimes I feel like it. Sometimes I really do. Go ahead, Balderson.
So, Tony, which government can I look at historically that's been both benevolent and competent, where I would want to give up all these controls to that government, including you yourself listed socialist governments that were absolutely and are absolutely horrible?
I'd suggest that the syndicalist governments, the communist syndicalist governments of the Spanish Civil War, are a good example of what I'm talking about.
Of a
now,
government.
Now the problem with them is that communists don't believe in states. So those entities didn't form. They had the opportunity to form governments in Spain. They effectively won the Spanish Civil War. So these are governments that were formed during the Spanish Civil War that ruled according. Their mottos were from everyone according to their ability to everyone according to their need. That was their motto. That was how they were run. And these things managed to exist, and they were quite popular and they were quite effective. Their problem was that they weren't interested in setting up a state. and because they're suspicious of states, they don't think that states should exist. But if you don't set up a state, you can't defend yourself against other states. So they ended up being militarily overrun by the other states. But in terms of government and in terms of sort of the non-corruption of the government, these are to my mind a good example. But as you point out, and as everybody has noted, you look at the Soviet socialist republics, just authoritarian dickbags. You look at the Chinese Communist Party, just authoritarian dickbags. And I know that's going to be used against me later when they've conquered the world. But you shouldn't trust the Communist Party. I won't use TikTok because I don't trust the Chinese Communist Party. There are things I don't trust my government about. There are things I don't trust the American government about. What we need is more effective democratic controls. But you're right to be skeptical of government power. But I am more skeptical about corporations, because corporations demonstrably have been shown to be willing to kill people or kill their customers or kill other people, people outside their customers, in order to make a profit. They've been willing to conceal information that would keep people alive. They've been willing to advance products that are harmful to their consumers. So I don't trust corporations there. And ideally, what we need is some system where, sorry, camera's this way. Ideally, in a capitalist system, we've got the government on one side and corporations on the other side, keeping one another in balance, and the everyday people. If one of them gets too powerful or the other, the system collapses. If corporations become too powerful, they'll just institute monopolies and they'll just decimate the population. If the government gets too powerful without some effective control, then it becomes an authoritarian hellscape. We need some way to try and modify our systems of government to prevent that from happening. And there are a lot of proposals out there, but I would just encourage people that just because you hear the word socialism, don't think that it's un-American. Don't think that it involves
you don't really want full socialism, though, is what you're just saying.
I don't want
live in now.
I don't want an authoritarian government. I don't want any restriction of freedoms. I don't want an undemocratic system. So I don't want you guys to have any freedoms taken away, to have any of your rights taken away, or the government or the government to be overwhelmingly powerful. That's not what I want. There are socialist systems in which capital is collectivized, but it's not an authoritarian system. And I think that you're right to be skeptical that a lot of these systems have become authoritarian, and we need to fight like hell to prevent that from happening. But I think that it is achievable, and I think that we're going to have to get there, because I don't think that capitalism has the answers for what's coming down the pipeline here.
Which socialist system has classically upheld jobs that were no longer useful? Because that's really seems to be what you're saying in this, is the entire reason that we need to make this move to a more socialist is because of the number of jobs that are going to be lost. Because in this, so what I'm trying to figure out is are you stating that the government should either nerf the abilities of AI so it's not able to take over these jobs that have become useless, which has historically happened over and over, or are you saying that somebody should be forced to pay useless employees? Because socialist government ever did that?
So what the system that I'm advocating for, and I'm not an expert in socialist economics, would be a universal base income, and people who want to work can work and accumulate additional income. So if you can get your needs met, your healthcare, your food, your shelter, those can be met with a universal base income. You want a car, you want a computer, you want access to the internet, you're going to have to do something that somebody wants. and there'll be businesses, and these businesses can be in competition. Just because you're in they can both be collectivized, but they can be competing with one another. So the idea that there's some central government that's controlling all of these businesses that are collectivized, all that means is that there's no private capital. They're still in competition with one another. They're still trying to produce innovations. They're still trying to produce goods that are better than their rivals.
Which socialist government ever did that?
I'm not.
Or did they all devolve into hell because there's no actual advantage to being the top dog? In fact, one of the big things about even the socialism of a union is you don't want to stand out above your fellow employees. They set a quota, and it doesn't matter if you're capable of doing 50 pieces. If 25 is what the fucking quota is, 25 is what you make, and that's literally how socialists work in order.
But no, it's not. No, it's not how. So
the problem.
No. Sorry.
Name me the different country that did it different.
Yeah, but the fact that they did it wrong, and you're quite right that's a critical error that a lot of socialist countries have made, which is to disincentivize extra production. So you don't get, if you go out, for instance, and you grow vegetables, you can't sell them to at a profit. You can't take money. I'm not suggesting that profit in return for work should be abandoned. In other words, if you produce extra, if you produce more than another worker, you get paid more. You get more money to spend on luxuries, or you get more resources to because you worked harder, you produced more. So people produce
up to an amount that you've arbitrarily decided.
No, well, up to as much money as one human being can realistically spend in a lifetime. You are not entitled. You are not entitled to more money than one human being can spend in a lifetime.
And
whatever happened to
that number?
Good. Sorry.
Who's deciding that number?
We are. Society is.
So it's going to be then the tyranny of the majority is what that's going to be. You've heard of this concept, right?
Yeah. If you wish to characterize it in that sense, certainly.
Right. Well, if the majority decide that they can just take whatever the minority has, that's just going to happen. That's how that works. And yes. is that morally acceptable?
I would argue that in some circumstances it is, and in some circumstances it isn't. So
who decides that?
Well, you
the
have
majority
to
every time. The majority
you have to apply your moral standard to it. But the simple fact
I'm going to assume that the minority, the ones getting taken from, are going to say this is bad, and the majority who's taking their stuff from that minority are going to say it's good every time. I mean, across the fucking board.
So let me get this right. Okay. So we to some extent have that as it is, right? The government has the power to take stuff off people, right? Take land off people. We assign the government that power.
Not really. No, they just do it.
Yes. Yeah, well, they do it for large construction projects, for instance.
Eminent domain.
Eminent domain, and that sort of stuff. If for instance you find yourself in a serious military conflict, you'll quickly find some industries nationalized. So the government has the power to do that. We rely on their discretion to not use it immorally. For instance, the Nazis decided that they could take all of the resources off the Jews. And a lot of Germans went along with that precisely because as you say, they were in the majority and they didn't like the Jews. That's immoral. Now, the counter argument is, unless you have a solid moral foundation for redistributing the wealth, you are damaging your society. You are damaging social cohesion by having a persecuted minority inside it. So you are damaging social cohesion. So if you're in a competition against another society, that isn't damaging its social
What's
cohesion.
fucking hilarious about this is you are literally explaining what the Nazis did and advocating for what the Nazis did. It's fucking hilarious, and you don't have the actual introspection to understand that you've done this. It's fucking hilarious because the fucking of the Treaty of Versailles, the young German people were broke as fuck, and even though they hadn't actively been part of World War I, they grew up an entire lifetime of having nothing, paying the consequences of what happened in World War I. So the way that was promoted to the German people, them dirty rich Jews, they got too much, more than what they can fucking spend. They have more than what a person should have.
Just like it's being sold to the American public. Just like it's being sold to the, just like it's being sold to the American public now that immigrants are the problem. It's those dirty immigrants. They're stealing everything. They're the reason you don't have jobs. And MAGA are the good guys, right? Because they're rounding up the immigrants and they're putting them in camps. I'm suggesting that a system
before they put the rich people in camps, especially if they don't fucking pay. They're trying to make a law.
I argue.
Tries to leave California, they pay a double tax on it. They're like, what do you mean if they don't get to escape? You stay here. We steal from. Period.
Yeah. Okay. So theft is a legal principle. I don't see the wealthy as needing that extra 800 million. I don't see billionaires needing that money.
It is literally what they said about the Jews. Let's fucking
no, that's not what they said. That's not what they said about. That's not what they said about the Jews.
All of the Jews' money.
Hang on. Can we leave this as a one-on-one debate? Okay. For starters,
I would love to keep tearing that ass up for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. No problem, bro.
So, the Nazis took all of the Jews' resources, not some of the Jews' resources. The Nazis then went on to put them in camps and to exterminate them. Right. How is that different? How is that different from what I'm suggesting? What I'm suggesting is that some of the money of the wealthy, and it would still leave them unbelievably richer than they could possibly
say tomorrow,
richer than they could possibly spend, richer than they could possibly, richer than they could possibly. I was in the middle of a sentence, and I'll continue speaking.
I know,
richer than they can possibly spend, richer than they can possibly spend in a lifetime. They'll still be that rich, but you're whining that they're not rich enough. And these are the people, need I remind you, who are in fact corrupting your country. They are corrupting your government. They are corrupting your media. They are corrupting your legislation. So these wealthy people who are destroying your country and are turning it into a tool for their own self-enrichment, they don't need to have their resources taken off them so that they can't do that anymore.
No, we need to make laws so they can't do that anymore. Such
as but that's the same fucking thing.
We need to make laws so
with a democratically appointed government in order to liberate
it illegal. Then they can't do that shit no more.
Yes, fine, and we can tax their wealth at the same time. It's great. Welcome to the program.
A little bit and then more. California, once again, they have the wealth tax. It started out 5%. Now it's just a slick 10%, 20% if you try to leave this fucking county or this state, because we're going to keep taking your shit and we're just going to keep
I'm fucking torn up for rich people.
If you give him your lunch money today, tomorrow he wants your lunch money and some extra. The next day he wants some lunch money and some more.
If we had democratic,
voting,
so you wouldn't vote against that. You wouldn't vote against that.
$2 million.
You wouldn't vote against that.
And all of us live.
You wouldn't vote against that.
But $2 million.
What do you mean, all of us? You're part of the electorate. You're voting for the laws. So if any law gets passed,
nobody voted for a war.
A law. You're voting for law, LAW.
Nobody gets to vote for laws, particularly. We vote
Yes,
for
they do.
representatives. No, I wish we voted for laws, bro. I really do.
In
But
a
we don't.
socialist system, you do.
No, not really. No.
Yes, you do. This is the whole. This is the whole thing.
I'm going with your systems. California is probably the biggest example inside the democracy of a socialist system and all the laws that they're implementing. And I'm just explaining to you what's happening in the real world. I understand that you're doing this whole airy-fairy, I live in fucking La La Land, and telling me how that's going to work.
You're
but
going to have.
You're actually working on the fucking
10
ground.
to 15% unemployment.
Is then I'm telling you how your shit, one for one, matches what Hitler sold the Jews, and then what happened?
No, it isn't.
And the slippery slope.
No, it isn't.
Explained how it fucking worked, and you have no fucking self-introspection whatsoever.
No,
it's
it isn't.
hilarious.
At what point? At what point? At what
like,
point?
I understand you think you're a special boy with
at
it,
what
and
point?
other people can't be
At
fucking
what point in
intelligent,
whatever I said?
but you have
in
not
what I've
proved
said,
it for anybody.
At what point in anything that I've said have I said that rich people should be treated different from anyone else?
Are you saying
nobody
that
else is allowed 200 more than 200 million people?
That's different, isn't it?
No,
We
it
should
isn't.
take an
No,
extra percentage from them
everybody has
because
their
they
wealth
have
capped
more.
at $200
That is
million.
different, right?
This applies to
Right?
everybody.
Are you like some kind of
This
fucking
applies
retard?
to everybody. It
Are
applies
you
to
like some
everybody.
kind
It's
of
not.
retard?
It's not the
Do you
different.
need a-
There's
do you
not.
need some
It's
ice cream
not
or
different.
something,
It's not
if we are
different.
going to take extra from one group,
We're going
then
to
that is
take
different
everything
treatment than the
greater
rest of
than a
us got.
certain amount from everyone. Everyone has their wealth taxed until they reach the same point. It is a law that applies indiscriminately to everyone in the country.
Except for the ones that make more and then they pay more because they get treated differently.
No, everybody gets taxed down to $200 million or less.
No,
Once
you
they're
don't
at
get it.
$200 million or less, that's it.
Well,
So
except
everybody in
that I said
there is
that I'm
no
pretending
special
isn't
case.
there in my
There's
answer.
no
Well, I'm
special
being
case.
disingenuous,
There's no
but
special case at all. There's no
disingenuous
special
as
case at all.
fuck. Like
No,
that's
All
why
right,
it
all
was
right,
the
all
same
right,
law.
all right, all
And then
right,
what-
all right,
No,
all right,
no, this is
all right,
important.
all right, all
This is
right.
important.
Hold on. I can't hear either of you now. So let's just do them one at a time. I'm letting this go on longer because I'm enjoying listening to the two of you, but I also want it to be somewhat controlled, somewhat. All right, go ahead, Tony.
Okay, so there is in the Nazi Germany, they passed a law and then they said, they passed laws and then they said, except the Jews. Here are the Jews, we're going to treat them differently. In this system, everybody is treated the same. If you have wealth above a certain threshold, it gets taxed down to that threshold.
No,
If you earn above a certain threshold, it gets taxed down to that threshold. That's
it's
the
not
same for
everybody
everyone. That is
So
the
not
same
everybody.
for everyone.
Those
It's the
guys don't
same.
count.
It's the same. It's the same for everyone.
Some
it's
animals
the same
are
for
more
everyone.
equal than other animals. I get it, bro.
No,
I
it's
get
the
it.
same for everyone. It's the same law. We're not carving out any exceptions.
Let's
I
let
get it, bro. Some animals are more equal than other animals. Totally get it, bro.
let's let Paranoid jump
You're
in.
the one who's saying that some people should have a disproportionate amount of wealth.
You're the person
who's saying that some animals are more equal than others. Anyway,
Am I
Paranoid,
muted?
off you go.
Just one really annoying analogy, but basically we were saying like anyone that's over 6 feet tall has to get chopped off a couple inches to bring them down to 6 feet, and it doesn't affect people that are
Jesus
tall.
Christ, I'll take that over to
disproportionately,
Dick,
because
and then I'm gonna be
we're going to enforce this on everybody equally. So if you're 4 feet tall or 5 feet tall, we're still imposing this on you. It just happens to be that if you're 6'1", we're going to have to chop off an inch of your flesh.
Okay, so your analogy is that reducing a billionaire from $1 billion to $200 million is the equivalent of cutting off somebody's flesh.
I'm saying you're treating them differently and pretending that you're not through semantics.
But it's not a physical harm. They are not undergoing economic harm.
Are you able to
They
think
are
in the
not
abstract,
undergoing
Tony?
it. In what way economically are they worse off for having $200 million rather than $1 billion?
Do you understand how to extrapolate abstract concepts to other domains?
In fact, sir, I have a PhD in that, so yes, I do. And your inability to follow the distinction between physical harm. You are suggesting a law in which physical harm is inflicted on people for circumstances they have no control over. My proposed policy is not on the basis of any physical characteristics or racial characteristics, nor is it imposing physical or economic.
Did he cut
is
out
somebody
again?
with $200 million economically worse off than somebody with $1 billion?
I think you're being a little bit extremist. I'm just saying an inch of flesh. What are they going to be doing with that extra inch?
That wasn't my fucking argument, you disingenuous dipshit.
You guys are killing me tonight. You guys, I don't know. The full moon was a few days ago. Like, I don't know why it's such a hard topic to try to get through. But here's what I want to do, because I know everybody that's been sitting on panel quietly, and thank you to all of you for not like trying to chime and jump in. I know all of you wanted to, but much respect to everyone. Let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and start kicking off the gauntlet. But in the meantime, I'll let Salty Santa jump in. But once he asks his question, then we're moving into open. If anybody wants to leave, you're welcome to leave. If anybody wants to stay and hang, that's fine. Fair and games. All right. Go ahead, Santa.
All right. In the interest of time, good to see you again, PhD Tony. One, I understood that the socialism would retain jobs, and if we lost 10% of the jobs, that'd be around 30 to 34 million, which is roughly the average of all the murders that occurred in converting large countries like ours to socialism. True or false?
False.
Okay. Maybe you don't have the data in front of you and you appear to be muted. Two, can you also give me the countries that led in innovation when they were a socialist country?
No.
Okay. Number three, we will do it right. All the others did it wrong. Do you hear that in your own argument?
Yeah.
Okay. Four,
having just argued for the benefits of innovation, I don't see how that's a controversial statement.
Well, good. I mean, modern healthcare that we've shared all around the world, it's saving those lives with those cheaper healthcare costs they were developed here.
Yeah, and
that means more people live.
So, but your access to them is limited by cost. An estimated, yes, it is. An estimated 10 to 40,000 Americans die every year because of inadequate access to healthcare.
But that's just a lot less than socialism, for one, and for two, if you go into an emergency.
No, it isn't, sir. No, it isn't, sir. We have socialized healthcare in Australia, and we don't have people dying for lack of. We don't have people dying for lack of access to healthcare.
I don't mind. Clay and I practice this all the time. But the innovation came from this country because there was a profit motive.
Why wouldn't there be a profit motive in the socialist system that I outlined?
I don't know.
Hold that thought, Santa. I'll give it right back to you. Hold on just for a second. All right. If you're watching over on the Raging Tomato side on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Insta, or whatever, Pilled, anything on the Raging Tomato, I'm moving you all over to the Gauntlet on YouTube. Okay, that is at the Gauntlet Debate. If you want to continue watching this crazy shit going on right here that's got me all willy-nilly, continue over there. I'm closing out the Raging Tomato now. Also, I do see we have the super chats in.